This is
Okay.
our intro.
Yes,
Intro.
this is our intro.
Evening.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good, bad. I'm the guy with the mic.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the Padded Cell.
Okay.
It's nice
So-
to see you guys.
Yeah, we do have like a regular lineup we're doing, but like that 24-hour stream kicked the shit out of all of us. So this is kind of our also our reset week for everything. So you'll see a Padded Cell tonight and Padded Cell Sunday to finish fixing the schedule.
That should be fun.
Yeah. We don't know who may or may not pop on this evening. But rest assured, you have the three of us, and that should be enough for you. You know what I mean?
I was
Well-
thinking. Go ahead.
I was thinking to say, well, at least I hope I am counted in the good storytellers. I know you guys are amazing.
Well, of
So we
course,
should be
of
able to
course.
find something to talk about.
Yeah. There's always things to talk about. If there's things you guys want to talk about at home, be it mental health things or just life things, of course, you can always, let us know and we'll talk about that as well. Hell, if you're really bored, we might even yank you into our into the stream itself because we tend to do that.
Yes,
I
I
know
can find you.
that 18 and plus disclaimer at the beginning here. There should be a modified one where it just stops at the end of this isn't this is intended for no one.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way.
At least for the Tomb of the Terrible. So yeah, it's not intended for anybody. Watch at your own displeasure.
Yeah. We've been on, I feel like, for seconds, and there's already three people. Hello, people. Hello, all you people. And in fact,
Oh.
hello, Tom Dog.
Hello, Tommy. How
If you're
are
bored,
you?
you're also welcome to jump in, man. This is just a chill night, man. Chill night. Been a crazy
yeah.
week. This is what I call Hell Week. It's the week right before our Valentine's Day show at the Haunt, which just so happened to coincide with a story being due for an anthology of fake horror for me that I hadn't finished yet, and finals week. So I'm trying to do like everything all at once, but at least it's the week after the stream and not the week before, because that would have been actually worse.
Yes. And you're probably extremely exhausted.
I mean,
Well-
yeah. Aw.
No,
We're
no.
sorry, Pyle. We heard about the power pole and everything, man. Like, it sucks when like your whole town is just no power. That's
It's like
nuts.
worse when that power pole that is down is on fire.
If you get really bored, you can shine a flashlight on your face and just jump in from your phone once in a while. You're welcome to do that too, man. Just to torment us.
But
Sorry. Oh, I couldn't read there for a second.
you okay there?
Yeah. Just smoking too much or not enough. I can't decide yet. You know how it is.
Have you guys ever given thought that maybe, just maybe, we have a shot at one day just dying online during the show?
Oh, that's not
Yeah.
everybody's plan. That's my plan. I'm gonna make sure like there's just that camera right there. And you've broadcasted from a hospital before, so I have to assume that that's your plan too.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's good that it's not super cold. Well, if my grandmother can die mid phone call with the 5 heart attacks in a row, the Widowmaker, I can sure die during this one.
Yeah. And my
Our
thing is, if
ratings
I
just shoot up.
we have a plan here, so if I die during a show, Matt will just come up behind me, like, but stay in the virtual background so you can't see that. And he's just gonna weekend at Bernie's me and just do my voice like, "Hi, all right." You got it handled.
Get a complicated system of pulleys and levers. Just
Yeah, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off style.
hello. How are you?
Luckily,
Alright.
I have y'all's address, so I know where to call 911.
Yeah.
But
Well, in my
I don't know
case,
if you
Matt
guys
also
have
lives
my
here,
address.
and Michelle and everybody. So they'll notice at some point that I'm dead in theory.
Yeah, I will start calling them nonstop until somebody picks up the phone. Why is Jenny Elliott calling me? What the heck? But yeah, that should be fun.
Oh man.
1 village out of 2 more are affected. Well, that's fun. I don't want to do
man.
that.
Soon the sickness will spread everywhere.
And when you say village, like I know, like it's a really small town and it's called a village, but like I think that you're in medieval times all of a sudden because you're in a village. So get your torches out, man, because Monster is coming.
But what of the village people?
Technically, that would make Pyle a village person.
Would they have to spend the night at the YMCA?
Indeed. I think they would. I think that's just something that you do in villages.
So,
And yes, I do agree. Everything is better with tacos.
Tacos? Am
tacos.
I missing something?
No, yours says figment of your imagination. His says everything is
Oh.
better with tacos. Mine is the name of a story that this guy I knew wrote.
Yeah, that
You
guy.
probably
he's an
know
asshole.
him, huh, Dr. Slasher?
I don't know him at all. No, can I confirm or deny? I forget that we have titles. Like I send them up sometimes, and
Oh no.
Oh noes.
it's okay.
It's not big enough.
I mean, you can always join the Navy. Sorry, I just we were talking village people. I just had to run it to death there for a second.
Come and join your fellow man.
Yeah.
A whole lot of my family had joined the Navy and the Army. At least they don't fight about it at meal times.
Yeah. You're only landlocked in your mind. What you need to do is just get a canoe,
Doesn't matter.
put it out in your yard, and start rowing, man. And eventually the water will come,
Or they will bring you to the water.
Yeah.
Trust me.
We were landlocked in Tennessee. That did not stop Grandpa from going to join the Navy.
Exactly, man.
My grandma worked on the official history textbook of Euland, Nebraska. And for that, the Nebraska governor made her an honorary Nebraska admiral in the Nebraska Navy.
Oh, wow.
It's awesome. We could do land ships where we can just get like a bunch of like carts from supermarkets and build a platform on it, like do a pirate ship and then just like row kind of.
Yar.
We could make our own float.
Yeah, it's a float basically. We're land pirates. And we'll fight land sharks, and it'll be great.
That would be fun.
Something to do. I have done shopping cart jousting, though, like medieval style. So basically, you take the big old the giant push brooms, and you unscrew the handles right. That way you got your jousting stick. But you have to put metal tip out, because it hurts more. And then you sit in a shopping cart and have your friend push the shopping cart towards the other person who is also being pushed in a shopping cart. It's a lot of fun until someone gets grievously injured. Yeah, but then you do it again anyway because it's it's fun.
Impaled.
Oh yeah, it's something we used to do for that Dayton Dumbass show I used to do back in the day. We were very influenced by Jackass, and some of us had actual stunt training, and some of us didn't. So the ones that didn't, would do the different things that were less dangerous for them. But I actually I got hit by a car in the middle of the Oregon District, like this really popular night spot, while dressed as Charles Manson, wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. That was a fun time. We did the human lawn dart challenge where you lay on like this in the hood of someone's car, and they start driving, and there's a target painted on a wall, and they slam on the brakes, and it shoots you off into the target. I mean, you wear a helmet, just to be clear, and like there's supposed to be padding and stuff when you do it.
Interesting.
Yeah, we did all kinds of crazy, really stupid things. So people wonder why I'm so injured all the time between wrestling and all this stupid stunt shit I did, and then just being a clumsy son of a bitch.
The insane things we would do, we'd tie, well, not we, but a bunch of my classmates would tie ropes on the back of people's pickup truck, get a decent sized board they can sit on, and go skiing on a muddy road. So, yeah.
Used to do that on the farm with a couch. On this old couch,
Yeah.
they would just hook the couch up to the back and then just drag the couch around. We just sit there on the couch, and get high as shit, and just ride around on the farm.
I mean, there is a
Your battery.
awesome, but there is a stretch of country road, gravel road, called the Devil's Slide, because at one point the hill is like this. It's not for the faint of heart, but
Oh, right.
when it snows really, really heavy, they actually close off that part, and everybody comes out and slides down that thing. It's great.
We got one of those in the neighborhood I grew up in. Suicide Hill is what we call it, but it's just a straight drop little road right in the middle of a plat. Like, there's no even sense that the road should have ever been built like this. It's since my childhood, though, it was destroyed and leveled like normal people would have built it. But we used to do that a lot on that one too, man. And a couple good spots in the woods too that just have these like sheer, like not drop offs, but like that slant. We would take giant pieces of linoleum and double them up and fasten them together, and then bolt chairs to the linoleum with a seatbelt on the chair. And we would just freaking. Yeah, I know how stupid it sounds. It was pretty stupid, but we used to do it.
Well, yeah.
You say stupid, I say epic.
Oh, it was epic. I mean, we had seatbelts in our little chairs, which were most of the bungee cords we would wrap around ourselves, to keep ourselves in.
So you didn't have to go searching for the body.
Exactly. The downside is, though, that you would almost always hit a tree by the time, because you were going so fast down the end, and we may or may not have seen Christmas Vacation too many times and sprayed stuff on the bottom of the linoleum. So you'd go down, and you would go way farther than you should, no matter, even if you didn't spray things on it to the linoleum, you'd go down. And it almost always ended up with you just hitting a tree.
Becoming a grease spot.
Yeah.
Sounds slightly painful.
Yeah. Luckily, by the time where the trees are, your inertia was like, you were already like slowing down like noticeably before it would happen. So the impacts weren't like, they weren't even like 20, 30 mile impacts or nothing like that. I'd say maybe like 5 to 8 miles per hour impacts. Enough to leave some bruises and like wake you up, but not enough to like kill you or anything. And I suppose technically a very small amount of pressure can break your neck. So it could have happened, but
Yeah.
it didn't.
Still sounds a mix of fun and ouch.
Yeah, that was the first haunt family group I was ever a part of. The very first time I joined, we used to do all that shit. We had a haunt band, like all kinds of stuff, man. We would all get together and just jam and do crazy shit. I remember one time I was shit faced, and I was young, by the way. Culture was very different in the '90s. Leave me alone, people. I picked up a guitar, and I used to play guitar, bass, drum, and vocals. I switched to only vocals after some accidents. Not at the same time. Fuck. I could do an instrument and sing at the same time, like drums and sing and guitar or bass and sing, but not obviously. But at one point in time, I grabbed my buddy's guitar. I was like, dude, I just wrote you a song. And I basically just started doing what Matt and Trey Parker always do for all their songs, where I just look around and I narrate what's happening and I say stupid shit. But it was to like a double tempo version of Happy Birthday. That's what I was. It was hilarious. And he was convinced that I wrote the chords and everything for like 3 years, until one day I was like, hey, dude, I just figured I had to do a slowed down version of that song you like. He's like, oh, let me hear it. And it was just, it's like, fuck, that's Happy Birthday. And I'm like, yeah. I feel like my whole life is just rubber, just an ode to no reason.
A lot of mine is.
Sometimes you get bored and you just gotta do shit to get your mind off the boredom. And it's better than all the terrible things you could be going out into the world and doing. So,
yes,
that's kind of what it is, man. Oh,
Yeah.
Kyle. Fuck you too, buddy.
we love you.
Yeah, but like I said, we got nothing really planned today. No particular conversations. We're just talking, seeing how things go, and blowing off some much needed steam. Well, the blowing off the steam is what's not needed, or what's much needed, not the steam itself.
Give me steam. Yeah.
Unless you're making something that involves steam.
Well, yeah, I mean, then it's very much needed. Then the steam is necessary.
Yes.
Unless we're talking about the online streaming video game platform, in which case I have a lot of friends who would like to blow steam.
We agree.
Power, yeah. Man, I just found out that one of my most beloved video games, like from growing up in the PS1 era, just did a remaster 2 years ago, and I had no idea about it till today. It's called Monster Rancher. It was like Pokemon before Pokemon existed, but I fucking spent, summers worth of playing this game, the first one and the sequel. The third and beyond I didn't care about. But they were cool as shit back in the day because while you're playing them, you could build your own monsters. And you had to hit this button on the prompt, which would open up the disk drive on your PlayStation 1. And then you would put CDs that you actually own from your CD case in there, and it would read the code of the CD and build you a monster. And that's how you got your monsters. Like, you could buy monsters and stuff too. Like, you got them from shit. And there was some, and you could use other video games and movies and stuff too, and put in there. When the movies weren't until PlayStation 2, but like the first one was CDs and video games. And I know a lot of the other Capcom games would you get dragon monsters, like ninja looking monsters, like all kinds of different just crazy shit. But I guess the new version has a different way where you can upload an MP3 and it'll somehow read that. Or I just found out that it's been out for like 2 years, so I was like, what the fuck? So now I gotta download it. Oh, and then I found out that Capcom is doing their they do these big voting things all the time, and the one they got going on right now, you can win all kinds of prizes. They'll ship to your house just for like going on and like answering the questionnaire voting thing. And I noticed they're talking about there's been some rumors about another beloved PS1 franchise called Dino Crisis, which, if you don't know Dino Crisis, it was basically Resident Evil but with dinosaurs. It was fucking amazing. And one of the questions on there asks you what of their old IPs that you want them to bring back specifically. And I noticed that for the first time they actually put Dino Crisis on there. And I'm like, it's a fun game though. It had all the puzzles of Resident Evil, all the terror, just, dinosaur.
I like playing games more like everybody's went to Rapture and Gone Home, and the ones where, because all of them usually make me sick, but I still enjoy playing them because I have this problem with watching the first person thing and the third person on the video game.
I have a hard time with first person games, like a really hard time with first person game. Third person I can do, it's all right as long as it stays that way. But if it switches views, then I get like dizzy. I got a game for you that I think you'd really like. Actually, it reminds me of like old school like Sega graphics, a little bit more, a little bit better than Sega, but not a lot better. But it's a modern game. It's about a graveyard. It's called Graveyard Keeper, and the whole point of this game, Graveyard Keeper. It's got a hilarious, like, tongue-in-cheek plot line. But the whole point is you died. You don't know how, so you discover how you died kind of over a period of time. You're dead, and you now are in charge of a graveyard. So you have to build the headstones. you have like a lab underground and like a mortuary underground where like they literally the town on a cart that's pulled by a smart ass donkey brings you bodies every day that you have to go down and prepare and then bring up and bury in the graveyard. And then you could hold services in the church that you also have to build to get more money and things to do cool stuff. But it's got fetch quests. There's a good story to it. There's no combat. Well, I mean, there is some combat. You can go and kill little monsters and stuff in the forest to get parts from them to build things. But it's a really cute story, man. It's a lot of fun. It's got horror in it too, obviously at times and stuff. And it's got a lot of expansions.
Xbox may be done. I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, so this has been a rumor going on for a while now, like a good couple years. Ever since the Game Pass started getting really big, they put the Game Pass obviously on PC, and they've been putting the Game Pass on different services and stuff. They even tried to get PlayStation to carry the Game Pass, and they turned it down because they got their own thing. That sounded like an emergency alarm.
Some stupid person did something they weren't supposed to with a young person. Now they're
Amber
being
Alert.
searched for.
Yeah, the Amber Alert. I thought
I cannot remember the color.
You're good. I forget sometimes too. But yeah, they've been putting all these patents and all these things and buying these studios. But where they're shit in the bed is they're not going exclusive for a lot of their content. They're making deals with PlayStation. They're being a good video game company, and with Switch and PC and a lot of other platforms. And people, a lot of people stayed with Xbox because they used to have exclusives. But now that they're focused on just buying studios and generating software and new games and making deals, they're making a lot more money than they were making just doing consoles. Because Xbox lost against PlayStation 4. They lost. And they're getting their asses handed to them double time with the PS5 and their equivalent. And there's a lot of people that are diehard Xbox fans that talk shit about PlayStation, but at the end of the day, I mean, the numbers for PlayStation are destroying them. Of course, Nintendo is killing everyone. It's Nintendo.
But the problem is, if you're looking at user friendly, PlayStation is dude, I had to actually do a paper about PlayStation and Xbox. PlayStation had everything you needed on the site. Xbox, I talked to a representative. They sent me to multiple different sites to get the same information I found right on PlayStation site.
Yep.
And it's
that's because Microsoft sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of does. It kind of does, man. There's no secret there. I will say Xbox has gotten better about a lot of stuff. One thing that PlayStation irritates me with is there's no web browser anymore on PlayStation. So the current console, there's a secret one that you can only access if you have to like connect to like a hotel Wi-Fi or other little weird shit like that, but like you can't use it as an internet browser. It's because people high up found out that there was a list that was populated at some point for some reason about all the different devices, the most popular devices that people, especially children, are accessing porn sites like Pornhub and whatnot from. And one of the top 3 was PlayStation 4 console. They were like, "Oh, we are not putting the internet on the next generation." But they did do the Discord thing, so like you can actually and a bunch of podcast services and stuff like Spotify. So with you can do this with PS4, but it's easier to PS5. Like I can listen to podcasts coming from my TV or my headphones from the system while I'm also getting the game sounds, and I can go in there and I can mess with the levels of the sounds to bring things up or down like normal, but you can combine that with the volume settings with your podcast or whatever you're listening to, your music. And I quite enjoy my PS5. Quite enjoy it. We were part of the what they call the PS5 lottery when they were under producing consoles because it was during COVID and they weren't sure money, a lot of things, and parts were hard to come by. So they underproduced all their shit, and people were like going to crazy lengths to get these consoles. Well, they went back and started sending out emails to people that had been PS Plus subscribers for like X amount of time. And the longer you had been a PS Plus subscriber, the sooner you get an email. Well, we got that email pretty quick. and there was also this whole thing going with it. We ended up getting. I wanted the no disk drive version because we just don't use discs anymore. But all they had left by the time it got to me was the drive versions. I think we only paid $300 for it brand new through the
wow.
lottery, which was like hundreds of dollars less than usual. So then when it came in, I went and I traded in all my games controllers in my PS4 and made all the money back. So we essentially got it for free when it not too long after it came out. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I probably still wouldn't own a PlayStation 5. I usually wait like 4 or 5 years until the consoles have come down way in price. Then I'll get a used one. I think this is the first brand new one I've had since PS2. I mean, it's not brand new anymore, but
The goal is to have one sometime later this year. And I haven't actually, I don't think I've played anything on Xbox in so long that I didn't even know about the bogus Microsoft Game Pass commercial. So I'm just not a Microsoft fan at all.
yeah, I mean, Windows. You know, because I use PCs only.
Yeah.
I'm not an Apple guy. I like Microsoft more than I like Apple. I'll at least say that, like tremendously more than I like Apple. And Linux I enjoy if I'm doing very specific things. Otherwise, fuck Linux.
Yeah.
Ben's fighting words, boy.
I like it for certain things. Like there's things that I can do with it that I can't do on PC. There's things that that you can do on PC just fine as well on Linux. But there's just a lot to it, and the stability of some of the Linux systems. I've driven myself nuts programming, like setting up Linux on computers and stuff, getting everything just right for some weird event to happen and lose everything and have to rebuild it again.
So my
Seven
brother-in-law. Okay, what
Okay.
were you saying, Necro?
I said I understand.
Okay,
But
cool. My
your
brother-in-law
brother-in-law
found out that I was doing I gave him the list of things you had suggested we were going to do on the podcast. So he sent me a Linux laptop that would do all the things, play any of the games you had suggested at the beginning, and run the podcast. And as long as my internet's not being a bad friend, it has been doing great.
Yeah, for the most part, I swear by the both the Ubuntu and Fedora platforms on the Linux, simply because I'm not really a gamer. I can understand why you'd rather have Windows for the gaming. It's way better on the Windows. However, I am not a gamer. I think the last video game that I really got addicted to was Gauntlet Dark Legacy on the PS2.
Oh, that was such a good game. I have a copy of that on digitally. Yeah.
Love that game, and I would always go to my sister and brother-in-law's place just to play it. And my nephews were always like, "Can we play with you?" I'm like, "No, I'm a single guy because I don't want you messing up." That I thought in my head, didn't really tell them that, but
yeah.
But normally, if I want, I'm a writer, and ever since Microsoft did this thing where you had to buy the word processor extra, I went, you know what? Linux has the same bloody thing, only it's free, and I can modify it however I want, and it works. You can save it as a Word document, and it still works that way.
Is it OpenOffice?
Yes.
Yep, I love OpenOffice. They actually ended up making a version of that for Microsoft too.
Yeah.
And then Google Docs, I just use Google. Well, I mean, I have to use Word, but like school pays for it, so I don't have to pay for it while I'm in school. But like, I only tend to use it for school stuff, period. I use Google Docs or OpenOffice. And I find that I've gotten more to just using Google Docs now, because Google Docs will also save things as Microsoft Office.
Oh, yeah.
But Ubuntu, that's the one that I love the most. It's one that I've had the least issues with
yeah. But I usually Halo on Switch. I've never played Halo.
I'm anti-Halo.
Okay.
I'll explain why later.
But if I always have a copy of Solitaire on the computers, because I like when I need to think something through, like if I'm stuck in the writing and I need to think something through, or if I'm, let's face it, in that depressive mood where I just want to stare off and not really do anything, solitaire, is perfect for just focusing on that. But other than that, not really that big on the video games. I like to watch, but
I like to watch this as much as I like to play, I think, but it depends on the game. Like that new Spider-Man that I did that one stream of for us, like I ended up playing through that. Dude, the Marvel Spider-Man franchise is one of the most beautiful adaptations of Spider-Man that I've ever experienced in my entire life. Like I'm an enormous Spider-Man fan, and the things that they've done and the uniqueness they've brought to the Spider-Man universe is amazing. So stuff like that I'll play. But otherwise, it's stuff like Graveyard Keeper, which is on PC, but it's also on PlayStation. Like simple stuff like that. That's crafting, things like that is what I enjoy because I can just do it and zone out. But the one I'm stuck on that I always go back to on either my PC or the PlayStation is called Slay the Spire. You play a character who's just going through a dungeon. You beat the dungeon, cool. You evolve yourself. So your next run, there's something different about it as far as it being harder. But you fight the same monsters, you fight the same bosses, it's the same thing over and over, but you don't have to think about it. You're just getting achievements and that just happen because you're playing the game pretty much. So like there's strategies and stuff too you can think about when you get to like way higher evolutions, or you can just play it until you die and not think. You're just doing.
I like that.
It's definitely my main depression game, I'd say, probably. But Halo, yeah. Here's why I say fuck Halo. I'm not good at first-person shooters. Doom, I was great on the Doom games and the original couple Duke Nukem games because first-person was a little different back then. Once first-person like shooters started getting intense, like Quake and beyond, I started kind of just sucking at them and didn't play them for years. And then Halo comes out. My brother's like, "Oh man, we used to play Doom so much back in the. Let's play Halo together." I'm like, I don't know how to fucking play Halo. I'm terrible, and my hands tremor just enough to make things like that really, like shooting and targeting a little difficult for me. He's like, no, I'll teach you. I learned from the master. His version of teaching me was us getting really high and sitting down for 2 hours as adults, and him killing me every 5 seconds.
That's bad.
And he'd be like, not every 5 seconds, like he'd help me and like teach me a couple things. He's like, yeah, and this is what you do. And then his character would just turn around and shoot me in the face. He's like, ha, ha. Like son of a bitch, I'm gonna stop playing. Like, okay, I'll stop. He'd teach me for another 5 or 10 minutes and then turn around and blast me right in the face and kill me again. And he pissed me off so bad that I've literally not really played first-person shooters since then. And that was like, I was in my early 20s then, so it's been a long time. Closest I can come is Fortnite, because you don't have to be in. I don't do the first person. I'll do third person mode for Fortnite, but I'll play that. That's a lot easier to play.
What do you think of Mass Effect?
I've seen it. The story is amazing. Never played it. I've never actually physically played it, but I've been present while people were playing it.
Oh yeah,
I really
it's
like
one of
the
my
story.
favorite things to, I guess, watch people play.
Yeah,
because I keep dying.
apparently it's either going to be a movie series or a TV series, or that someone brought. I can't remember who it was that bought the IP for that, but
see, that's kind of where I stand too. I like watching, like my friend is big on the PC gaming, but he also knows that I'm big on, I'm much more interested in the storyline of things. So, he'd let me watch, like when he'd play American McGee's Alice, which was a great game. But I got really fascinated and obsessed with the Kane and Soul Reaver titles.
Legacy of Kain. Oh
yeah,
my
Legacy
god, those games.
Those were just fantastic. Those were my telenovelas.
Yep. Plus, they featured the Archangel Raziel, so I, of course, was all the fuck over that when that came out.
Oh yeah.
But I remember the first Legacy of Kain too. You'd go like this, and you'd suck out their blood from like a distance, and it would like shoot out of their bodies and into you, like that shit.
Yes.
That game was brilliant, man. I love that game.
That game was metal. But I remember when, like, a coworker was describing to me the storyline behind Soul Reaver. I'm like, really? Like, the soul of a disgraced vampire going into the netherworld and then the real world. And I was watching this going, this is the greatest game ever.
Yep.
like going into the spirit realm and fighting things, and then having it affect the physical realm when you go back.
Oh yeah.
But
I mean, the setup of that game and the controls were also very similar to two other games. The Spawn video game they put out around that time, and The Darkness. They all had that same like really dark, gritty vibe, and like the weird hero type character. It's more of an anti-hero, really. But all great storylines. Like this, man, games had such great storylines, and a lot of modern gaming. There's some that still the storytelling is genius in. But for those, I go more towards like it was a game. I can't remember the name of the series. It started off with a game called Until Dawn, which it's like a party game, but you play it like a movie, like chapter by chapter. You play it in or scene by scene, and it's brilliant. It's interactive. You make choices. Everything you do affects everything. And then Dark Pictures Anthology. So it came out, it blew up, everybody loved it. Then they didn't make it Until Dawn 2. They started an anthology series called Dark Pictures. And I own all of them now, and they just get better and better, all the different things you can do. They have famous actors that are actually in all the games, like screen capped and stuff. And they also just did another spin-off that's not part of the series a couple years ago called The Quarry, which is, these games are brilliant. Like if you're a horror fan, like a horror film fan, you're hurting yourself by not playing these games. You can watch them and it's cool to watch them, but having to do like the quick time reactions and stuff, there's stuff if you jump scare and you move your controller too much, like the killer will find you. Or and I remember Until Dawn there was a point in a couple of other games where it'll pick up your mic, especially on PS5 where your mic is built in your controller. If you're breathing heavy or you're talking, the sound will trigger and you can be heard, but only during like some scenes. Like most of the time that's not, those things don't exist, but it's cool shit, man. It reminds me of the Telltale video games, like the Walking Dead Telltales, where again you have all the choices, and it's cut down into the same like Act 1, Act 2, blah blah blah. It's just they're just even more interactive and story based. So it's like you're telling a story because every time you play it, you can make different choices, and there's so many combinations of things that you can do, and whether people survive to the end of these games, and they're short plays. Like Until Dawn's a longer one, but you can beat it in less than 24 hours. And a lot of the other games in the Dark Picture anthologies are like 6 to 10 hour games. Like they're made for you to play them online or with your friends, like as a group. Because there's modes in the newer ones where you can set it up to where, like, say there's 4 of you. Well, you can each control one of the character when their story pops up, and you can compare how you did and whether you kept them alive or not. But they're meant to be enjoyed in like just a night or two with your friends.
That is awesome.
It's like you're watching a mini series, like a Stephen King mini series, like lengthwise, and just like kind of playing through it. That's the vibe I get from it. And they're riffable too. They're definitely riffable. Which also there's an MST3K video game where you get to riff movies and stuff. And I've been thinking about picking it up to see what it's like and trying to stream it with us at some point in time. It feels like something that we would all enjoy quite a bit.
Oh,
So
most
I'm going to be
definitely.
looking. Oh yeah, I'm thinking about doing getting the Steam version of it, so I don't have to go through all the crazy shit I had to do to stream my PlayStation on my computer. So I'm going to be checking into that because it could be fun.
Sounds awesome.
We need to do some more gaming things that we can all do together for Twitch, man. Beyond, D&D is great, but we need to do some other gaming things also over there. Hell yeah, man! I've seen the videos for it and everything, and just that and loving MST3K, like most of the people here on the network do. It seems like a win.
And I'm glad Channel X exists.
Me too.
I just didn't know it was thanks to Halo.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. That was cool, man. That was really cool.
My take on the whole Xbox thing, just back in the day, especially during the aughts when I was working at Radio Shack, my boss, the manager there, would always bring his Xbox along and hook it up to the projector that we were selling, and he would play that in. He would play that Hulk game that came out.
The green disc
on there, yeah. But my take is always the Xbox were primarily for the frat boy dude bros whereas most of my friends played PC games, which
Yeah.
seemed to be more of the elitist kind of thing. And meanwhile, I'm over here still just playing the solitaire on XP.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I bounced and forth a lot because I still had a Commodore 64 that I would fire up and play all the time. Even in the early 2000s, I would still do it, and other old consoles. But when the next gen consoles started rolling out, I gave them all a shot. I loved a lot of things about the Xbox, but the controller was garbage. That fucking wonk. Those first, you had to like wrap your hands around them in such a weird way. Like you could not play Tony Hawk. I don't care who the fuck you are. You could not play Tony Hawk games when they first started dropping with that controller. It was so awkward. But on PlayStation, man, you could grind every rail and do every trick in the map like that. Because the layout of the PlayStation controller is just, it's the most perfectly designed controller I've ever experienced from any console or computer setup. It's fucking easy,
yeah.
man.
For a while though, I think the Nintendo 64 controller was pretty good.
It was.
Mhm.
It was
Just kinda-
awkward only at first until you got used to it. And then but the learning curve on it was not that big, really. It's pretty simple to jump into.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that and a copy of GoldenEye all the time, simply because, especially when you're working at Radio Shack, especially during the holiday season, you want to just go home and shoot things
Oh yeah.
legally.
That's what I love the early Grand Theft Auto games for. Grand Theft Auto 3 was my coming home from doing club security. I worked 3 jobs then. I was going to school, all kinds of shit, and I just hated my life. So I'd literally come home and get wanted by the cops within moments, do the cheat code for the tank, and just destroy the whole fucking city. But I remember back when it was on Sega and Grand Theft Auto were top-down games and not what they were starting with Grand Theft Auto 3. But I think eventually along the way, I just kind of stopped playing Grand Theft Auto. I think San Andreas was the last one that I frequently played, and they had done so many changes that I didn't love with that one that it just kind of got me out of the franchise.
Let's see, my cousins had it, and I would go over, and they were like, "Okay, so in this run, we're just going to be using the big purple dildo as a weapon."
Yep.
And okay.
The only game where you can pay a stripper and watch them go into the back of a car, and then it's supposed to do a pan out. But the original disc copies of San Andreas were bugged, so you could actually zoom into the car and watch the sex happen. So they were recalled, and you couldn't sell if you had a copy of it and you wanted to trade it in. You couldn't sell it to any of the gaming stores because they couldn't take it legally in their stores because it was recalled. So you had to go to collect. I had to sell mine to a collector. I got like $100 out of it. I think I paid $30 for that game. But you can actually zoom in too far and see it. So not only are you paying a hooker and it's raising your life bar, but you could check out what was happening in the car. And then as soon as she gets out, you can just beat her to death, get your money back. Like the whole concept of that was so fucking just wrong and terrible. So many things about that franchise are wrong and terrible. The stories were really good though. And I can't speak to the current Grand Theft Auto game. I've never actually played the story. I own it. I've just never actually played it because it was free with PlayStation at one point.
So for a stretch, my youth group that I worked with, we would get together with others and have a lock-in at the YMCA in Fremont. One particular year, near the end, they commandeered the really big television monitor thing at the YMCA, and we're playing Grand Theft Auto on there. So they're like, "Come, watch this," and I was howling with laughter with what they were doing. And being the leader type, you get an maybe a precognitive idea of what a church youth group leader should be doing. And there I was going, "Hey, you just got smacked by a dildo," and
That is epic. That dildo weapon was quite a weapon, though. It was actually stronger and more efficient than the club was at the time, too.
As you do.
You just go to the strip club and it's just spinning slowly in the air until you pick it up. Games were weird, man. Really weird. remember the Leisure Suit Larry games were really, they were just wrong on so many damn levels, man. I think the last one of those I remember playing was Leisure Suit Larry Wet Dreams May Come. Because I mean they're like sex based, but they're like they don't actually like show it, and it's like a lot of innuendos and like really ridiculous shit. But these are the type of games that are made, man. It's like have you ever heard of Monkey Island?
Yes.
So it's like Monkey Island, but like a more sexualized version of Monkey Island, more or less. Is what these games are.
I'm very much aware of Leisure Suit Larry.
Okay, cool.
Of that series. I was about to bring up the Duke Nukem series.
Love
like
Duke Nukem.
You go up to something and just hit a certain button and wackiness ensues.
Yep. And you'd always go and like you'd have to save the strippers at the strip club, and then that was
Coochie.
Yep. I liked when they did the reskin. They released it. Well, they released a new game based on all the old ones. It was Duke Nukem Forever. That version of Duke Nukem for like modern generation was truly fucking epic, because there was a Duke Nukem museum that actually had like objects in the museum that you're going by and looking at, like from all the games, like even back when Duke Nukem was a platformer on like the Tandy and shit, like back in the day, like they went all the way back to the history. So you got to see the progression of the whole game in this museum. Those were fun games, man.
I forget the name of the one that I always played. It was on N64, and he was going back in time sometimes to like the Roman.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. It sounds really familiar though. I think my number one messed up title that always comes to mind, other than South Park, the South Park video game, was Conker's Bad Fur Day, which was the squirrel. And it was a very adult game, and it was a messed up game. But if you beat it, you unlocked all the cussing instead of it being bleeped out. So like there'd be cussing from this squirrel and these people like every 5 seconds, and the whole plot was ridiculous. There was an entire world you went to that was like sentient shit, basically. Like Monster would have fit on that particular. Actually, they had shit golems. Now that I think about it, they actually had shit golems in that world. So yeah, that must have been the birthplace. That
so
and Dogma.
if you wrote down the name and on a small scroll and shoved it in its mouth, it's yours.
Yeah.
Dude wanted to touch it.
It was crazy stuff though, man. Games are odd. I mean, I will say though, the hands down the weirdest game I ever played and beat, and there's many endings you have to go through, is Maniac Mansion for NES. That is by far the strangest fucking game ever made. And I was weirded out by it because I thought it was going to be based on the TV show Maniac Mansion, which I fucking loved and still love to this day. It was not. It had nothing to do with the TV show in any way, and it was just this wacky, crazy shit.
Expound.
Oh, so the whole point of Maniac Mansion was there's this haunted mansion, and you play as a whole group of kids that you got to press a button to switch back and forth to all the different kids, kind of like the early D&D games they used to make. We had to switch back between the warriors and like do different weird things, and you can hit the little cursor over the word pull or push to do actions, and you had to uncover the mysteries, which there were many inside of this haunted mansion, basically. But all the characters were super weird and bizarro. Like there was a man-eating plant for no reason on one of the boards. You had to figure out how to get around, and you'd have to go and find little items around the house that would trigger these events that made no goddamn sense. Sometimes, like I remember there was this one part where you had to figure out how to make this. You found an auto recorder piano, like a recorder piano. You could actually, there was a tape deck built into the piano, so when you play the piano, you can record from it. And you had to figure out that you could even do that by finding a blank tape and just sticking it and then recording it, and then having it so late, like way later in the game, you'd put that tape in a stereo, and it would create this sound that somehow destroys this boss. And you're just like, how would I have known how to do that if I hadn't accidentally figured this out?
Well,
Like just by happenstance. And the whole game was that. There was no code book for it for a long time. It was just, there's all this weird shit. What can you do?
Was this pre-Nintendo Power kind of stuff?
No, Nintendo Power was out. It just, there were so many different endings and so many different things you could do. Like no one at the time when it came out for the first little bit even knew what to do. So even the people that did Nintendo Power, they got the pre-releases of the games to, before they hit market and everything. It took even them a while to figure it all out. Of course, eventually they did put out a book for it, and there was a lot of information. And you can go online like Game Facts and different places and get the walkthroughs to see every ending, which I actually have done on a Twitch channel. I've actually gone back and played it, but it's just such a weird, bizarre fucking game.
I'm sure there's a Just Play on there.
Oh yeah,
on YouTube or something.
Oh, there is. There's a ton of it. Man, Twitch channels like the one I used to do with Michelle. Have a field day with it. We were like this weird, bizarre little channel. We either did RPGs or we did shit like old school RPGs, like weird ones, or we would just play strange games. Like I know like the horror games, like we did Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. I went and one time we spent like 8 hours just playing Word in the World with Carmen Sandiego, the Super Nintendo version of it. Just weird little gimmicky games was like what our whole channel was dedicated to. But there's a lot of channels out there like that where they'll play Maniac Mansion and cool shit. And those tend to be the gaming channels that I like for the nostalgia, just for the absolute fucking weirdness of it. I have no idea why we've been talking about video games for 45 minutes, but
seems like a good idea.
I don't think we've ever done that before, so it's something new to do.
So yesterday, apparently it was the birthday of Basil Cooper or Copper. Are you familiar with that author?
Sounds familiar, but I'm not sure offhand.
Apparently he was an English writer, former journalist, became a full-time writer in 1970. He had some mythos novels and stories. He would publish. He would get published on the Arkham. The Arkham.
Yeah, the Arkham Press.
Yeah, Arkham Press.
I do know this guy. I mean, I didn't read a lot of his stuff, but I used to have volume 1 of the Darkness, Mist, and Shadow collection of his stories at one point.
See, had it not been the fact that I'm part of the H.P. Lovecraft group on Facebook, one of many, that they posted a happy birthday to the guy, and this is the first time I'm hearing of him. So I went to Amazon, and on the Kindle, I got. Let me go back over here. I got his. Bring it up. Ooh. It's the full-size novel, The Great White Space. So that was for sale for like $8 on the Kindle. So
not bad.
Yeah.
So let us know how it is, man.
Sure.
Definitely. There was actually a book I wanted to ask you about that you had recommended to me a while ago, and it just popped up in my brain again. The devil is going through a haunted attraction with some guy, like talking to him.
Okay, that one. The premise is great. However, the execution is, how do I put this? It's like a middle school kid trying to describe sex.
Okay. Oddly enough, I think I get where you're coming from on this. Okay. Damn it.
Yeah.
Because the whole concept popped in my brain. I'm like, oh, wait, this already exists as a premise because I remember James told me about a book like this. Yeah. I have to remember to ask him what it was.
Well, maybe you can make a better one, where it doesn't sound like a kid from the aughts, and he's just, trying to go through personal philosophy and then porn.
My idea was more of like a Dante's
badly written porn.
Okay. My idea was like a modern day Dante's Inferno, but in a haunt.
Tries to do that.
Fun.
Okay.
Tries to do that, but just all of a sudden it's like, I must have sex with this person, and then goes into graphic detail and
hot killer clown.
Yeah. But I got like 35% into it and went, I'm done.
Okay.
This is hurting my brain, and
what was
I don't
it called?
quit anything. asking me to go back on and tell you. Let me.
Maybe it's best that we don't know.
Oh,
I'm joking. I still want to know. I still have to read it.
no, it's not that. It's way down on the list because I've read so much after attempting that one. Oh, here it is. Nope, that's not it either. Why are you so small? I'll find it. Talk amongst yourselves.
Apparently, Josh is watching Has Been Hotel again.
I still need to watch that because I wrote that one down. You said I should watch it.
Because Beetlejuice from the musical is the worst angel ever, Adam.
Thanks.
I'm going to grab my actual Kindle. That'll be on there. I'll be right back.
Okay, cool. In theory, we're here.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I am still reading Dresden Files. I finally started. So which one am I on? Death Masks. I just started Death Masks 2 days ago.
I don't know why my brain went back to Chimera Bounty. I've been working through the 3 different short story things to get the little ads made and make the Friday's Fractures. And somehow my brain decided I need chimeras and on a weird prison that apparently I live on. So yeah.
My brain shifted when I first started talking about wanting to do the Seth stories, like 2 years ago almost now.
Mhm.
I started doing a comp reading, and I'm still doing comp reading for Urban Fantasy. And
Mhm.
I went through all the fucking Nate Temple series books by Shane Silvers. Like finally, it took me like a year and a half, and I read every single thing. And he's about to put out another one that I gotta stop and go read. So I read through all those. I went back through all Eric Asher again, and I started like, oh, I need to go back through Dresden Files. But then in between like series, I'll do one-offs. Like I'll read or listen to Gas Station Jack and other things that make me laugh, or just that are still urban fantasy. Like also like Bill of the Dead, the Vampire Bill. That series, it's hilarious. It's a comedy, hardcore comedy, urban fantasy about vampires and stuff in the modern world. But I'll read some like side stuff like that here and there as well, and then I'll go back to like a longer series to kind of. I'm searching for details, man, like little tropes and things like that. They really understand the genre better, so I feel like I have a better grasp as I write things in it. It's horror, that's like second skin for me, but any other thing that's not horror, like it takes some effort. It takes some.
Oh
I
yeah.
like to learn more about it.
I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah, because as a reader of urban fantasy, which I love reading, it's different than writing it because I have to think about what I like about it. What I'm seeing is done the same way. What can I put my own spin on without offending readers of the genre, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and you read so fast compared to how fast I can read.
I do
'Cause
read pretty quick.
But also I've noticed if I start reading, there seems to be this little spidey sense in Dante's head. Mommy's reading. I need to go play with her.
Yep.
And I love it. Speaking of spidey sense, he can tell you the different personality traits of the different goblins now with the 3 different series he watches. He's
Oh, man.
like, well, this one's cool and this one's cool. And the picture you just got me is Green Goblin, but I like Gobby better. I'm like, oh, wow. But
That is
the
really
fact
cool.
that he's picking it up and he can tell me stories he made up about it. I'm hearing his fanfic that is a mix of Shimmer and Shine and Spider-Man, and it's like the coolest thing ever from a 4-year-old.
That is so cool, man. That's a hardcore creative mind right there. Like
Oh yeah.
hardcore. When they're already doing fanfic at 4 years old, that's something special.
I can't wait to see what he writes when he's able to write. Until then, I'm enjoying being woke up with little stories that I'm like, okay, I didn't see how that could mesh, but that sounds cool.
Oh yeah. I never really thought about it, but I mean, I've thought about doing comics before. I talked to some people about, like doing a graphic novel or a comic series, but I would love to get a chance to write for like Spider-Man or like, something like that. Or, I don't know. I just think it'd be a lot of fun for me. Like it'd be cathartic for me to go back and revisit my youth and a lot of other things. Because the McFarlane run of Spider-Man, I love all the versions of Spider-Man, but the McFarlane run of Spider-Man was when I was like getting into really the world and figuring out who I was. And there was Peter Parker. And I'm just like, man, this guy.
I love Fallout. I love that the lead singer has done the theme song for Spidey and His Amazing Friends.
Fallout
But
Boy.
yeah, Fallout Boy.
Okay,
Yeah,
you
Fallout
said
Boy, not
Fallout. I was like, I
Fallout.
love that game series. And then I realized that you were talking about.
No, I meant Fallout Boy.
I got you.
We keep jumping between Fallout and Skyrim on the TV in the living room and Has Been Hotel lately. So my
Fallout
brain is
76 has been on our TV like in the basement like nonstop because she's doing all the dailies every day for the event that's going on the season.
that I understand. That seems like fun though.
It is.
But yeah, I don't even know why asked that question during the interview, but you said Fallout 76 is on over here, and I'm like, ooh, that is a good question to ask. But back to the original thing. I am so tired of him singing. I didn't know I could get tired of him singing something because I had played Fallout Boy CDs on repeat whenever I was younger. Now I'm so tired of hearing him sing Spidey and His Amazing Friend.
Sure, that's 2,000 times this week. I'm good.
Because it's like 20 to 30 times a day.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like after I got disgusted with how things were going, I kind of took it off of my Kindle,
Okay.
like deleted it from the Kindle,
Okay.
and which is for the best. And
Okay.
if I come across it again somehow, some way, for
If
whatever
you do,
reason,
send us a text of the name.
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I was going through the read and the unread stuff, and I'm like, there's so many good titles here. Why am I,
I understand. It's going to be like this book that I'm going to build up the legendary status in the back of my mind, despite all the warnings of how I shouldn't read it, because it's how my brain
But
works.
I am intrigued by this whole Dante's Inferno, but in a funhouse setting. Go with it.
Yeah, it's something I'm definitely thinking
Raz
about. And there's a movie that I love. It's called Devil's Carnival. I don't know if it's a musical horror film that takes place at a circus. The same people that made Repo the Genetic Opera, the guy that wrote that also made these movies. There's
Okay.
two of them, and that's kind of how they're like, like all the souls at the carnival are like, they don't realize they're dead. They find out they're dead over a period of time. But the stories that they do, at least for the first one, are really good, and the music is brilliant, and it shares some of the same actors as Repo. It's a really good series, but like I wanted to do it in the style of an actual haunted attraction. But I'm working on so many different haunted attraction things. Like right now, like I literally have my thesis novel, which is I can't even explain to you right now. There's like 40 main characters, and it's an epistolary thing, and it's crazy. And then I've got my comedy haunt series on Reddit, which we that we also do the recorded version of for Hunter's Handbook. Somehow we manage. And then I've got that, and I'm also writing a book that's actually a musical, which I've talked to no one about. It's called Haunted Attractions. It's a love story that's also a horror novel that takes place in a haunted attraction.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm actually writing the songs out and everything. That's a little side project. And then I'm working slowly on a nonfiction book about what it's like to work at haunted attractions, like things the actors need to keep in mind and stuff like that, like a how-to book. It's got like a workbook part of it as well for you to help, that runs you through and helps you design your own haunt characters and stuff like that. So like there's like so many haunt projects in my brain, man.
I love that. Just please don't ask me to do the musical. Well, at least not a part where I have to sing.
No, that's just going to be a book. I've never seen
Okay.
I'm sure they exist. It's been a big thing to write a book that reads like a found footage film. That's been a thing that's been popping up for a little while now, and I'm going to do that eventually as well. But like I've not seen a book that reads like a musical would, like with all the same tropes of a musical.
I have.
Have you?
It's
What's
a
it
Star-
called? You can read it.
It's a Star Trek novel.
Ooh, I'll
believe it
still
or
read
not.
it.
I believe it's called. I'll have to look it up, but I did a review for it. My ex was it was her favorite novel, period. But the whole premise is like Kirk and the crew of the Enterprise being down on this planet. That essentially, it's kind of like that. If you've seen the recent Marvels movie,
Yeah, I loved it actually.
That planet where they basically speak in musical.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like they'd be walking along having a regular, or really it's more of that Once More with Feeling episode of Buffy.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That
Where
she
they
absolutely hated.
suddenly break out in song, or I guess you can say that particular episode of that recent Star Trek episode with Pike and
Okay. Yeah.
they have met. Hey, brain not braining right now.
Yeah,
So many things coming through.
Sarah Michelle Gellar almost quit over that episode.
Really?
Well, she's not a singer, and she had no interest in doing it. And they sprung it on her, and Joss was like, "You have to do this, or you're breaking contract, more or less." Like she's done like whole like interviews about this. Like there's a lot of details I'm missing on this, and I'm not going to tell you all of it because I don't remember all of it. But I remember reading a couple different ones where she said out of all the episodes that was like her most hated at the time she gave that interview. There might be other ones she's including that in modern times, but
or more on Joss Whedon himself, because he gets
very much.
Anyway,
yeah,
two Star Trek books that, well, one not because of the plot. It turned out to be a really good book. Laurel K. Hamilton, when he wrote Anita Blake and the Princess Meredith books, she wrote a Star Trek book. I can't remember the name of it, but the fact that she wrote it threw me off.
That's amazing. Michelle probably knows all about it.
And then apparently in one book, Q marries Diana Troy's mom.
Okay. That's interesting. I can see it though.
Yeah.
Okay, going to the book reviews list. This is bothering me.
Speaking of Buffy, Dolly Parton just made an announcement on the future of the new Buffy series. Apparently, it is still going to happen. It's still being worked on. And what I find odd is that people have completely forgotten that that Dolly Parton's production company did Buffy.
Yeah,
and that she was a big part, like behind the scene type stuff, like. Because there's a big article like recently, it's like a week or two, with her talking about it. People are freaking out, like, what does Dolly Parton have to do with whatever? I'm like, dude, like this is, if you're a Buffyverse fan, like you have to fucking know, like.
I didn't know that until I was an adult, but also I didn't know that around about the same time I found that out, I found out that I Love Lucy Arnaz, that's the name. She's the whole reason why we have Star Trek.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Desilu Productions. But
yes.
Speaking of which, I found it.
Oh, okay.
It's don't know
I
if you
can't see
can
that at all. No.
Okay.
Can you?
The book is entitled "How Much for Just the Planet," written
Can
by
you
John
share that
M.
in the chat?
Oh, like the
Yeah.
well, it's on my phone.
Star Trek book number 36.
Well, if you hit they have this little thing with triangle with two square circles. I mean,
Well,
hit that, and then if you go that way, it gives you a shorter link, and you can put that in our chat on Facebook.
Yeah, it just occurred to me because again, braining. But bitty Owlite Army. Here we go.
That works.
And
That's
set.
cool, 1999 is when it came out. Check that out, because I want to do some reading for like musical style books.
Okay.
Well, in this particular book, I remember when they get to the musical part, they did it all in, they kind of centered the where it went on all center instead of left adjacent, and they italicized the singing parts.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like
cool.
having to italicize the lyrics. Yeah.
So basically, if we had Dell read it, she would just make up her own melody, and it would get stuck in our heads for days on end.
I know
course.
italics is really hard in printing. Like in fake horror, we don't. She doesn't do italics because the printing for the italics is it always shows up. It's really expensive and it just looks odd. So I'll probably have to figure out a different kind of format to do.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I thought it was just a simple process of hitting the Control I.
No, I mean to do it, yeah, but like the printing portion of it looks odd because she tends to do some of the bigger print format books too to make things easier to read for people, which I fucking love, by the way. And
Okay.
there was some issue errors with the printings every time she goes to do italics. So we've been finding like really cool, inventive ways to do something different that's not italics that prints really cool. So I'll come up with some new, like, really interesting way to do song lyrics. I mean, you can also just throw them in quotes if you want to too, but they're just. I feel like there's a vibe that gets missed when you're putting them in quotation marks. So I'll find
Or
some
you,
cool way to
or
do
you
it.
get like the musical notes, emojis, like you normally do on.
Yeah, and put them in the place of the quotations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really cool idea. I think that's what I'll. That's thank you, man. That's a good fucking idea. I like that.
You are
That is
welcome.
It
awesome.
is awesome.
And I did share it on the Owlite page, the review you sent.
Okay.
That way, anybody who's watching can find it so they can see it.
Very cool.
And of course, there are Klingons involved.
Yeah. More singing Klingons. It should be fun.
But I remember her like letting me borrow it, going, "I read this once a year."
Man,
And I'm like,
do
okay.
you guys have any books that you like like that you have to read at least once a year? You feel weird about it?
Yep.
What are they?
Well, there's one particular book that really resonated with me so hard because I was basically in that main character's position going through this, and I don't know if you're familiar with Frank Peretti, but he gave us the well, he wrote a couple of angel-based novels called "This Present Darkness" and
Okay, I
"Piercing the
remember. I remember.
Darkness."
I remember that title. I've read
Beyond
that one. Yeah.
beyond that, he actually wrote some pretty good. Some would say faith-based fiction, but
Okay.
it's really just fiction. He just happened to be
I get
he
you.
happens to be a Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote about a supernatural dragon who was eating people called the Oath. That was very kind of
I feel like I know the book cover for that one.
yeah, but it's a pretty good length and it's very Lovecraftian at points. Very kind of like I wouldn't say it's Southern Gothic because it's based on the northeast side of the country, like around
Right.
Washington, that kind of thing. But he has a novel called The Visitation. They actually made a movie of it starring Edward Furlong, but it's essentially about this guy who was a former pastor of a church who has lost his faith as a crisis of faith because he lost his wife to cancer.
Oh, wow.
And one day, he's retired and in a small Washington rural town, and one day in walks kind of a long-haired, kind of like I hasten to say hippie, but kind of like Randall Flagg.
Okay.
Only he's claiming to be the return of Jesus, and he starts doing miracles, and is throwing the entire town into a frenzied chaos.
Almost like a Needful Things level of chaos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh
That
yeah.
sounds pretty
And
cool.
so he has to grapple with, it's one of those where it's like, I've lost my faith in God, but then suddenly something happens. It's kind of like the Mel Gibson's character in Signs.
I was gonna actually make a
Yeah.
parallel to Signs because the
Right.
the vibe in the small town. Yeah, Signs.
Right.
I love. I actually love that movie.
Right. But there's
Love it.
he does touch on themes of charismatic Pentecostal stuff that I had to go through back in the 90s, let's just
Right.
say, that, really grabbed me as far as the point of view from this guy.
Yeah.
and trying to fight the very subtle evil that came into fuck with the town, for lack of better words.
Mhm.
And I think the movie did not do the book justice because
Well, I mean,
they
it had
changed the
Furlong
whole.
in it, so
Yeah, right. They tried. They really actually Furlong was kind of the better thing about that movie, believe it or not.
burn.
Yeah, but using what
I
I
would
forget
definitely
his
read this
name.
book because I haven't
Yeah,
read it. I just looked it up
yeah,
and saved it for myself.
yeah. Definitely read it. It's great. It's one of those. He inspires me because I am I'm a man of faith myself, but I
Right.
try to write goodly. You know, and
That's the interesting thing about like religion. And guys, we don't actually like discuss religion unless there's context, and there's good context here. Like you mentioned that he's labeled as a faith-based writer because he's a man of faith.
yeah,
But the thing is, there's a lot of great religious themed novels in all genres. Like that's like saying King is a faith-based writer because he actually writes quite a bit from the perspective of different people of different religions. Look at Salem's Lot, for example. Holy shit. And that list goes on. Some of the most amazing stories I've ever read. I guess you could argue that they're faith-based because there's faith of different religions in them, but it's
right,
about the story. That's just it's a piece of the story that provides a background and an entry point for readers. Like you
yeah,
said, with the Pentecostal thing, like that's something that you experienced, so that drew you in to the book. Like that really got you into it. For me, Twilight, oddly enough, um, the time and the faith and how they handle the reservation. That was like once they started talking about that in the second book of Twilight, I was like, this part's actually pretty accurate and good. Like this part of stuff is really cool, and that kind of got me into the series a little bit. But like you find these entry points in your life for different things, and faith is one of those that a lot of people believe in a lot of different things. So it's a
mhm,
good jumping off point to get readers interested in backgrounds and stories, and to be able to connect with them. And I think that's really cool.
right. And quite frankly, I delve into the whole horror genre simply because I think it's the perfect platform to just at least discuss the nature of good versus evil
Oh yeah.
and the various nuances therein,
Mm-hmm.
which
It's
might
a good.
ostracize me from certain groups,
Well, I
but
mean, it's a good jumping off point for horror. Like faith based horror is really cool. Like Exorcist, that's faith based horror.
right,
There's no argument that can be made against it being faith based horror. It just is. That's the whole premise.
right,
If something is the entire premise, then you can call it that. That's how my brain works. Like, I mean,
yeah,
even with
Mhm.
music, there's a lot of faith based music that I did not realize was faith based music until different points in time. Like, I was with my ex wife. Got really excited about this alternative uh, show that was going on. It was live, Collective Soul, and Counting Crows. And I was over the fucking moon to live all three of those bands. We get there, and there are a million, church buses in the parking lot. I'm like, what? What? What's
collective
going
soul,
on?
right?
And my ex looks at me, and she's like, do you not know that these are all considered like faith-based bands? And I'm like, no. She's like, think about all the lyrics. And I'm like, no. And I start going through my head. I'm going, oh, huh. I guess I just never thought about it like that. Then I went in and enjoyed the shit out of that show. Got a T-shirt and went
I mean,
It just never dawned on me.
I just did a review for DZ Talk's Jesus Freak album, and you
I
talk
remember that
about a
band
band
actually.
that just blew up into the mainstream.
Mhm.
I mean, it was everywhere,
Yeah,
and
I'm very familiar with them.
yeah, but yeah, I think I'll just stop talking.
I mean, it's important to know that with context, though, like
Yeah,
discussing things like this is great because we're talking about the contributions from these things with pop cultures and different stuff. And I think it's really cool to be able to be like, hey, this is what I read, or this is what I listened to, or this is what I like. And I think that's more than acceptable. I think for people to have
right.
conversations about it. It's really cool,
Mhm.
So, what's the book? What's the book you always read yourself, there, Jenny? Every year.
Every year, Friday.
I figured that one.
I
Managed to
love
change.
her.
It's such a good book.
As a teenager, I enjoyed the fact that she was not what they were, and she had to find, after so many things, a family, that there is a family out there that would love you just as you are.
Yeah,
So
I can agree with that 100%.
What's
I did.
yours, Dr. Slasher?
Mine has changed at different times. Like, I still read. There's some I still read. I have a long list of things I try and read every year. Harry Potter was one that I would read the whole series every year on Harry's birthday, and like with the moving and the hotels and all that stuff, that got a little bit hard. So I haven't read those back to back. I've still read them all like throughout the course of the year here and there, but like
Mhm.
my adamance of reading them like insanely has kind of faded in recent times. Um, Nightbreed by Clive Barker is, I think, the one since my childhood that I've never not read every year. It is one that I still read every year. The entire John Dies at the End series, no matter how many more books get added, I do every single year because I love them so much.
I wasn't aware there was more than one book.
Yeah. 3,
Was there like
4.
5?
I think there's 3 or 4 out now. And he
Okay.
just announced that he's secretly working on another one. So
Okay, so there
they're
will be
amazing.
5. Okay.
Yeah, there will be 5. Yeah, there's 4 out now.
It's the 5th book in the trilogy.
Or
Well,
3. God damn, I gotta look this up now. This is gonna drive me nuts. I usually know all the individual titles.
It's
My
like
brain is just
Hitchhiker's Guide. That's a 5-book trilogy, so why not?
4. There's John Dies at the End. This book is full of spiders. Seriously, don't open it. What the hell did I just read? And if this book exists, you're in the wrong universe. And by the time What the Hell Did I Just Read was coming out, he actually changed the author name from David Wong, which is the main character of the book of John Dies at the End. It's not John, spoiler alert. Well, he's a main character, but he's not the main character. He actually went and changed it to his actual name, Jason Parkin. So,
Well, Wong was basically his pen name for writing for Cracked.
yep.
I
And then
believe.
he changed when he left Cracked. Yeah,
A lot of people left Crack.
everybody did, pretty much, because they changed the format of it. They changed everything about that.
It was
was
owned
amazing.
by, it got picked up by a new company, and all of a sudden, everybody I loved.
Yep. Layoffs and gutting. He talks about it a lot, actually, his experience on it. He's got a really cool podcast that I think you'd actually really like if you've not heard it before. Like he does an amazing pod, and it's about all kinds of different topics, like all kinds of different stuff. And he makes a lot of appearances, like, and his writing style just gels with me so fucking hard, man. Like, just so hard.
Yeah. See, one of the podcasts I absolutely love is it used to be known as Unpopular Opinion, but it now goes by, because they had to change it because everybody else was using it. It's now like you don't even like this podcast.
Yeah.
By Adam Todd Brown, who used to write for Cracked.
Yep, I used to watch it when it was Unpopular Opinion, or listen to it when it was Unpopular Opinion.
That song still plays in my head. Free Range.
Oh yeah, I definitely have podcasts that I listen to, but most of them are story based, like the No Sleep podcast, Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I tend to listen to that, but then I've noticed that there have been other really cool ones popping up. Like there's one called Unwell that's about this small town in Ohio where this woman has to come back home because something is happening with her mother. But it's like horror and sci-fi and fantasy and mystery and comedy and drama, just all kinds of together. And you're following just one story each season. I've been getting into podcasts like that like every season is like it's just one giant ongoing story. It's like a soap opera, kind of like like a radio soap from back in the day. Like
Mhm.
that's how it feels. And I've been getting sucked into a lot. I've heard so many cool different ones. Like there's one I can't remember the name of right now. I have to look it up later on Spotify about a guy volunteers to live in a fire tower for a couple months because he doesn't have anywhere to go, and he's kind of in the transition point, and all these weird things happen in these woods. There's other people that live in the fire towers for the fire signals, and there's Tales from the Gas Station's another good one. That was a Reddit series that got narrated on YouTube as a series, but then went to you can get the books on Audible now, like separate. Like
Yeah, I have one so far.
I'm really into those. I'm really into just just full stories. I like the shorts, but I like full stories. I don't think I listen to a lot of talking podcasts as much as I used to. There's a couple true crime ones that Michelle and Brooke listen to in the car. I can't remember the names of right now that are really good. I like when I'm in the car with them, but I tend to gear towards stories than talking, which is weird because most of what we do is talking.
Dude,
Yeah.
speaking of podcasts like that, I know you guys don't normally do things like romance, but Stephanie Bond did a series podcast called Coma Girl.
Okay.
You can also get it on Audible as the full book now. But the concept of the book is she's laying there in a coma, but she's still present. She can hear everything that's happening. And she doesn't remember, but she's learning things about her family. And it's also slightly heartbreaking because her family always put her on the back burner. Her needs and wants were usually not that important. And now they're frustrated because they know nothing about her and they're supposed to help her come back to the present. And it was actually a really good story. It's the first Stephanie Bond book probably still the only Stephanie Bond book I ever read. But that
Send me a link to that if you can, because believe it or not,
yeah.
I love drama. I love dramas. Like, people don't think that about me, but like I have a lot of the shows I watch are all mostly dramas.
I know
Well.
you're here somewhere. I just talked to
I mean, they
you.
have other genres mixed in with it, but they're still primarily genre. Like, you can't tell me House on Haunt or The Haunting of Hill House. It's horror, it's speculative fiction, but it's a drama first. Like 100% a drama. Like, a lot of the stuff Flanagan does are literally dramas that just happen to be included in other genres with different backdrops. Like, there's there's one with oh my god, it's like modern day treasure hunting, and it's this group of kids. It's really big on Netflix. I have to look up the name of it because I watched this one with Matt and I love it.
Speaking of modern day treasure hunting and drama, Ruby's Raid. Have you thought about doing any more on that
Nope.
series?
Nope, never. Nope. Oh, Outer Banks was the show I was looking for the name of, by the way. I love that. That fucking show is amazing. Oh no, Ruby's Raid came about because my friend Natalie over at Chilling Tales from Dark Nights, they were organizing this thing over there where her husband Stu, who's a painter, an amazing painter, was doing a series of paintings for Chilling Tales, and they wanted to see if who could write a good story to match the painting, and if yours got picked, like, they actually did it, and it was one of the first. I think it was the first thing that ever appeared in my on Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, and I wrote it to go along with that painting, and then I expanded upon it for this giant school project I did. Then I re-released it on my own, the extended version of it, and that was it. I did so much research on the Michigan Triangle and that whole thing, dude. Like, super cool stuff. And I'm actually about to go to the Upper Peninsula, hopefully this year, to dig around and look at some things. And they've got a maritime museum. The one I wanted to go to is over there. So, but that was just a weird one-off one.
Okay, but I didn't know if you were going to do anything else in that triangle or anything else to do with the pirates.
Yeah,
There's so many different ways you can go. But
yeah. I mean, there's always a thing, like, as a writer, where you never say never. You know what I mean? Like, if the right thing came along, the inspiration, it could happen. But it's one of the few that I've written that I intended, like, 100%, like, I will never do another one. But I mean, having said that, though, there's other ones that people bug me about wanting a sequel to. So now I'm suddenly looking at writing for an anthology at the end of this year, a sequel to There's Something Different About Her. I am literally writing a sequel story to that one-off story that I never had an intention to continue. And recently, people have been bugging the fuck out of me about wanting to know where Mr. Jones is and what happened to him. And I'm like,
never thought me to ask about that, but it did make Sonia happy when you told us about that. There was going to be more in that series. Well, that story.
Yeah, Mr. Jones is going to have I don't know if he's going to have his own story, But a lot of
Yeah.
these things that people have been bugging me about are going to be seen in other things that I'm doing with the Riverside Chronicles as a whole
Okay. Well,
concept,
I
like the
meant that
whole
there's
world.
something different about her because she
Oh yeah,
loves any story about those creatures.
yeah.
She
So it's going to pick up with the same characters actually. Like the
Okay.
plan for this is, the first one ends. If you guys haven't read it, it ends with
Mhm.
something is now differing about her mother,
Yes, that I
and
saw.
it picks up there, and it is several. Only it stretches into the following summer because the very next summer they go on a family road trip, and one by one there becomes something different about each of them. As the main character from the first book is still the main character, and he's the one driving and noticing it.
Okay.
So it's an on the road type version of what that was, which is really hard to write. It's harder to write than what it sounds because there's a lot of logistics. But I got the idea for it out of nowhere when we did the 420 Fest driving down to Colorado. I wasn't the driver, but I was just like looking in the rearview mirror. I was like, it'd be really cool, man, if I did another version of this story. And I was talking about it the whole trip, like if I did this, if I did that, like what if the main character looks in the rearview mirror and the person in the back seat, their eye just kind of flashes a little bit for a second, enough to think, am I just tired and I just saw that happen, or is there really something different about them that I need to pay attention to? So it's a paranoia thing too, because he's been through all this before. So now he's paranoid and like really paying attention to everyone around him, and so it's got a different vibe to it. But
Okay. And
it's
James.
weird, you do shit like that, and you don't think you'll ever touch it again.
Oh yeah. What do you think? Are you going to continue the sphere one, James?
Yeah, it's I've actually figured out how to end it. It's just a matter of it's just a matter of getting my overly depressed butt to just write the thing. I have it all mapped out in my head and how
Yeah.
it's going to end, but I have to wake up and not go, I want to go back to sleep, please.
Oh, okay. Because
Actually
you
be
even
productive.
because even Josh is happy when you said you were thinking about it. He's like, yes,
Oh,
I can find out
okay.
more.
Same. That's
Oh
what I
well,
was
You
really
have
interested in.
no pressure or anything. But
well,
Tons of pressure, all the pressure.
I just wanted to make sure you knew that you had 4 people here and 2 in
Sure.
Georgia that are like, we love you. We hope we get more.
I'm gonna grab me a drink real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay. Then I'll bring
Okay.
up what I was going to when Raz gets back. But wow, that's like six people.
Yeah. Did
2
you
in
expect
Georgia,
to have
really?
fans? That's where my sister Sonia is.
Okay. I
Because you
wasn't
got
aware that.
Jasper and Sonia, and well, probably more than that because he's like, you have to hear this. So the people, they
Oh,
can hear our stories through his headphones when
yeah.
he's playing them while they're gaming. So he's been making everybody else listen too in his little friend group. So yeah,
Okay.
so
Any
you have
word on
fans.
the? So any word of on how the one that I wrote in the supernatural universe was going?
The supernatural universe.
Yeah, the guy who drives from Ohio to Omaha to that crossroads demon inside the bar.
Are you writing a story about me?
No,
I just heard drive through. I was like, I've done that.
I started
Oh,
that story long before I met you. Actually, it was
isn't that
another
the
one of those. I'll have to finish it and send it to you, but I'm
yeah?
beginning
Because
to think maybe. Go ahead.
I know you have people who want you to finish it too, but it's like,
Okay.
ooh,
I'm thinking maybe I finished and sent off the wrong story for the collection.
I don't
Maybe I
know.
don't.
I've been so overwhelmed. I haven't looked because
Okay.
I know I love Mike's. I need to tell Mike because I don't think he'll watch this that I loved his. But also I've been trying to get caught up on the other things. So I
Hmm.
need to go back and look now that everything's less overwhelming because
Right.
I was worried about the whole thing that I thought we were doing because Raz said, "Hey, don't forget there needs to be days for D&D," and I'd already scheduled 2 days for the other, so I didn't schedule anything more this month.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, now that Raz is back, I'm going to explain what I finally scratched off my bucket list.
Yes.
Like for the longest time, you're familiar with Stephen King's Nom de Plume of Richard Bachman,
Of
correct?
course. Of course.
Yeah. And that back in the 80s, they released the omnibus of the Bachman books through Signet.
I own those. Yeah.
I got both. I originally bought in 1988 the mass market paperback of the Bachman books when I was but a freshman in high school. But then years later, while perusing a Goodwill in Omaha, I noticed that on the shelf there was a hardcover edition of that for $1. So I snatched that up, as you do. So I have those 2 copies. Now, the one novel that's in there, Rage, the one that kicks off the entire collection, the first one that he published under that name, is no longer in print because of the controversy behind. I guess there's been incidences through the years where there would be a shooting at the high school, and the said shooter would be always had a copy of Rage, or listed it as, I've read it so many times. So I'm ashamed to say that the only story I've read from that collection was The Long Walk. Great story, by the way. So I just sat down and like a couple of days, I read the Rage novel. It's only 170 pages, and it's interesting. I can see how that could be problematic.
Yeah.
And I'm currently kind of like working on a review to post to. Essentially, I wanted to see what all the hubbub was about. And I don't know, what are you guys' take on that whole,
on the book itself?
Well, the book itself, and more generally, taking something out of print simply because of the impact, art imitating life, or life imitating art.
I think it's bullshit. I think anyone can say this one thing influenced me, and this is why I did everything. Because as human beings, we need to blame our shortcomings and faults on other people. Parents tend to do this more, certain types of parents, they want to think their kid is right even when they do terrible things. They find things to blame things on. It's part of human nature. And I think taking it out on art is tough. Yeah, you might get ideas that you've never had before when you read a book, but that's kind of what books are, and movies and paintings, and it's meant to instill thoughts and like bring us to realizations that we didn't reach ourselves. But I think it's a cop out to blame a book or a video game or what have you. But books get it the hardest because, like you said, they get yanked out of print. The Rage is actually a very beautifully written book, I think, on this person's unique situation. Like there are some projects like this out there. Uwe Ball, actually, it's weird to say that name. It's completely weird to say that name. Did a series of movies called Rampage. The first one is the only one that I loved. It's about a guy that just snaps one day and starts ordering pieces of weaponry and armor online until he has assault weapons and a full set of armor, body armor, and just goes around town. And he takes Falling Down with Kirk Douglas. It's like that, but he actually just goes around town shooting all kinds of people. But it's people that are like really shitty people, or they just do terrible things to other people for the most part. Like he doesn't kill like decent people. It's just this thing, but he does it all over town, not just at one place. And it also got blamed a lot for things like that. But it's just good.
You can argue that Falling Down, Kirk Douglas's character doesn't really kill anybody. He's just pissed off. He does take out a phone booth.
Yeah, he does some fucked up shit. But like, and that's one of my favorite movies of all time. That's like one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time is Falling Down, man. But like this just takes it to another level with more violence. But it's a little bit more, the violence level of the Rage. But yeah, I think blaming art for mental illness is wrong, and I don't think we should be yanking books out of print because it could give someone an idea. Because where do we stop from? Maybe the modern version of putting warning labels and and things like that on things. Sure, I've gotten to the point where I get the importance of that now. Like, what are they called? Not warning labels.
Trigger warnings.
Thank you. I'm getting to the point where in my age, I'm understanding why trigger warnings exist and how you can incorporate them without giving away what's happening in your art. Because that was my biggest argument for a long time was I don't like trigger warnings, not because I'm against, because I'm trying to fuck people up or anything, but like I feel if you say, okay, I give you a trigger warning that this book could be about child endangerment or have something to do with an animal. What if that's my major plot point that you're not supposed to see coming until it happens? I've literally just ruined my project. And if you choose to read it, you're going to get to that and be like, oh, it was staring me in the face all along because it was a trigger warning. But I've found ways to like, this book could trigger, people that have different, adversities to certain subject material. And then I list things like, limited to, may or may not including this. If you get to a point where you feel like something is going in a certain way, it's best to just maybe put the book down because maybe it's not for you. So like that kind of thing, doing that with books, I'm good with that. I'm okay with that going into it. And, parents should be paying attention to what their kids are reading anyway, so they can make,
Yes,
an informed decision rather than just removing it entirely, which just shits on everything that we all do.
Now, this is an instance where it wasn't banned or outright taken out by an outside source. The author himself let the printing lapse.
Yeah,
because of that. He made the decision.
Yes. And making it the decision yourself, I think is okay. If you feel like it's impactful and you as the author choose to do it, it's okay. Yeah. But if it's not the author's choice,
then
no.
That's why I'm thinking is a bit different than just, banning a book.
Yeah. How do you feel about, my kids are older. You have younger kids. This could potentially be like affect you more, Jenny. What's your opinion on it?
Well, if the author decides it should be taken out of print, that is good. But also, there's we have talked about all the books they have. Why Sir Milton, I like his adventures and what he does, even though some of the stuff he does can be considered dangerous. But then again, they're watching Mission Impossible. They've watched it with me, and it's not like Tom Cruise didn't just do the same thing.
Right.
So it's like, do you see? I can say, hey, look, you are seeing this on the screen. Can you see how that's potentially dangerous if you try to do that off the house onto the van type of thing? But also we have a good rapport. That's what you need with your kids. You need to be able to say, hey, okay, I see you have that question. Let's bring up information and look at it. This is what happens here compared to what's happening here. This is why their family has decided it's a bad thing for them because it's against this and this and their religion. But we don't think it's bad because we have differing beliefs. That has come up before with the kids in her class. But it is a matter of talking. Keep talking with your kids no matter what about anything they read or any question. Don't make any question taboo.
Right.
I like that. That's how my mom was as well. You can ask me anything. If I don't have the answer, we'll go down to the library and we'll figure out the answer together. That way you're not just off doing crazy shit without thinking about it. I mean, not that I didn't do crazy shit without thinking about it in my youth, but
there is a small part of me thinking, okay, it may be a bit questionable on his part simply because I understand his motivation behind getting that taken out of print, or in this case, just letting the printing copyright drop, lapse and everything. However, we're talking about a guy whose biggest book still has that scene in it, and I'm talking about the book Hit.
Yeah.
Yes, and he could have just easily. He did it with The Stand, where he updated a few things to bring things up to 1990 standards at least.
Yeah.
Right. And but
I'm glad we're talking about this.
Yeah, we could have, that could definitely get a rewrite.
I disagree
People
with you, and I hope he never
really,
changes it, and
okay,
I'll explain why. So
okay.
this, I actually had to do a paper on this, an entire like 10-page paper, or something like that, just about it was about. I mean, there was more to it than just this, but like a giant focus was just the scene in the paper. It's about different literary devices and choices authors make to convey certain things. And I think as much as the scene, let me explain the scene without going into detail. So if people don't know, there's a scene in the novel by Stephen King where young Beverly, and most of you have probably at least seen the movies, has relations with all the boys in the group one after the other. Um, there's no passion in this. It's not. There's not a lot of gross detail like people seem to remember for some reason. I read this one every year, like I said.
No, you're correct. It's not that graphic, but still.
You know it's happening. There are
Right.
comments like it'll be mentioned that there's a grunt or what the people are thinking about while it's happening. Like, I can't believe this is happening. But then they all also kind of drift off to like different thoughts while it's going on, because different ones of them have different levels of interest in her. But all of them understand that this isn't a romantic thing. This isn't a, oh my God, we're having sex for the first time thing. The whole point of this was that Beverly needs to figure out a way to bind them together forever, because just being friends, people lose friendships, and this is what starts a whole conversation about how, we're always going to be friends if anything happens. And one of them says, well, my dad had friends our age that he doesn't even talk to anymore. And it was this whole conversation about how they're going to stay together as this group to be able to come back if they need to kill it, to once and for all, if they've got to come back later. And so she realizes that she's the only one that realizes it at the time, that they either have to experience something more tragic and real world based because they could forget about it. They needed to establish something tragic or something powerful as a group to bind them forever. And the thoughts of, children, sex is like, especially, for girls at that age, and especially that time period, I suppose. I'm not a girl from that, specific time period or a girl at all. So, I'm speaking from the context here, is that, sex is the big thing. That is the big thing that kids think about. And so the act of doing that, with all of them, individually, it wasn't like a group thing, which also people for some reason remember it as like this group activity, and it was not. They were all in the same vicinity, but it was a one at a time kind of thing. I think it was handled respectfully, the way he wrote it, and I think it was beyond true to character for Beverly, especially considering her history of abuse. And because of all those things, it actually created this really powerful point in the story. If you consider it from this specific perspective about a story and about the characters involved. And that's why I think it was so important, and it remains important to the book.
Okay.
Do I want to read something like that? I'm not gonna go and yank things off the shelf just for a scene like that, and I would prefer not to. But in context, strict context, I think it has a place
Okay.
there.
Now,
That, yeah, I can see why that would seem like the biggest thing to link them. But it also, everybody has their opinions of the book. So
Oh yeah, my opinion's not the right one. It's mine. You know what I mean? Like, I fully admit that, like, however people view it is completely okay.
you sure it wasn't just cocaine?
I think my level of neurodivergence is, it's an odd mix, man. The autism and the borderline personality disorder and some other issues that I've got, where I don't understand motion and motives a lot of the times with people. Um, so I have to think on a level of, I have to consider a person's past, history, their mental states at different times to understand what they're telling me or the emotions they're feeling, so I know how to appropriately respond to people. And this is something that happens in my head all at once when I'm in conversations with people, because I've trained myself to think this way for years to, fit in with society or whatever. And I think my entire opinion is based on that trained mental process, because how I thought about that scene when I first read it is different from how I think about it now. I used to think, why the fuck is this in here? I used to think like that too. But over time, with my mental thoughts and analyzing people and actions, I think is what helped me arrive at this opinion, because it's all about how you view the world, I think, and people, and if you come at it with I guess my way is almost clinical. It's like, A and B happen, so C makes sense kind of logic. So I think that's why it's easy for me to detach and see it like that, versus being a child and reading it going, ooh, what, this is a saucy scene. And then, as a young adult reading it, just starting that thought process, it was, okay, maybe we oughtn't have done this. To now it's, I get it.
Okay.
That. Oh yes, and I forwarded you 2 emails, his story and Mariah's, because
Nice.
I don't know if you've seen those yet in the Owl Light. I don't know if you ever go look in the Owl Light.
Me?
Yeah,
I mean, what? Which one?
the
The
Owl Light email.
Discord? No, I almost never
Okay.
look at, unless I have to, okay something that I've sent there.
Okay.
I'm bad about
Cool.
that.
Well, that's fine. I've downloaded it and I've sent them to you so we can look over them.
I'm writing a story as a birthday gift to someone right now.
Ooh.
I want to publish it, but it's really controversial because it's about cutting. So like, there's a lot of debating on that. The basic premise is it's about a girl who cuts because there's something wrong with her, and it talks a lot about what cutting is, why people resort to that, the whole concept of it. Like, it's like letting, it's like when you cut a tire and you're letting the air pressure out, that relaxation, that vibe that people talk about that cut. And but no, the premise is actually that she's possessed by multiple demons, and doing that, the bloodletting, it's all wrapped up in mental illness, but doing that is actually what keeps the demons at bay and from getting out of her. It's a really fucked up story, man. It's a fucked up story.
That whole process.
Yeah. I tend to really enjoy writing about different aspects of mental illness, I think, because it helps me understand them and my own life and views, I think, better, or tragedies and things like that. And I think a lot of writers honestly write about mental illness without realizing they're writing about mental illness. And I think it's just about how you highlight it and do it. Like, the mime is about multiple personality disorder. That's the crux of what that project is. It just so happens that there is a
Mhm.
possession. It just runs parallels. So I think I think my tropes are mental illness in small towns for some reason. It's just where I
But
gravitate.
also, like the schizophrenia we were talking about, I've seen so many different ways it shows itself in different people, to find that there was somebody else that was important to you, that it presented the same way that it did for my grandmother. I didn't know that there were others with her type of schizophrenia. I say type because my cousin is schizophrenic, but how it presents for him is totally different. But
Right. And that's the unique thing about everybody that's got different mental disorders, there are things that are going to be similar between all of us, that have these disorders, but there are going to be major differences, like, that are just very unique to your brain chemistry and your personality,
Mhm.
that are still very unique and different.
Mhm.
I think now would be the good time to put the ticker on.
Yeah, the ticker.
Oh yeah, let me find said ticker again.
But
9. Yeah.
yeah, the whole issue about mental illness and such, if you can harness it, make it work for you, it's a great thing. I've had to I've had to do that for decades, and let me tell you, when I was in high school, small part of college, that still trying to get the hold of it was just but now
It's hard,
it's
man.
yeah. This is why like Philip K. Dick is so, it resonates with me so much, his stories, because he was writing, a lot of his writing reflects a lot of the mental anguish he was going through with his own demons, let's just say.
Definitely, man. Definitely. I'm looking up something that's relevant to this. I've forgotten the name of. That's relevant to this direct conversation. So please continue to discuss.
That's all I had in my head.
Yeah, the only thing that I had in was like the differences in and compared. Because I'm not trying to say everybody's mental illness is like others. It's just the biggest thing for my sister and I, you can see from the what she's went to school for is understanding, trying to get better because she has like 5 different certifications slash degrees about learning how to counsel, about how different mental disorders can present themselves and how it can work, how how to understand what we went through as kids because we have clinical depression, we have kleptomania, we have bipolar, we have because my sister's bipolar. We have so many different things because we even have family members that live like the end of their lives in like Moccasin Bend, the our mental health facility in Chattanooga, the big one. And it's confusing, but it's also liberating to know that your family isn't the only one, but others have seen it and know the feelings you have, know the feelings of the mania, know the feeling of the calm, know the confusion.
Yeah.
And that is she's that is one of the harder parts because she's went more towards like helping the trying to help, and I've went more towards the dementia and the loss of brain memory and different brain functions.
Mhm.
But it's it's crazy. It's well, the feeling of trying to understand seems crazy at times. I'm not saying the people are crazy, but it's like mind-boggling, but it's also freeing and it's also heartbreaking all at the same time as you look
Right.
through it.
I mean,
So I found it. It's Anthony Hopkins from the movie Instinct. Has this
Yes.
line about the word control. And for a long time, I felt that I had to control my mental illness. That's why I built all these different systems in my brain to interact. And I don't remember the exact dialogue right now because I don't want to take an hour to look it up. Uh, it's control. It doesn't exist. It's a word
No.
that we made up as human beings to feel better about our life situations and to think that we could actually control things in our lives, which are ultimately completely not controllable because control is a human instinct. We can't control anything. We can't control the weather. I can't control whether I live or die because a plane could crash through my house at any moment that I didn't have control of. I can't even control my environment because anything can pop up in it that I haven't accounted for. Control is a safety blanket. It's Linus's blanket. That's what that word is. And the sooner you realize that you aren't in control and that you are in control of nothing and remove that word from your personal lexicon, the easier it is to navigate in the world around you. And as someone, one of my conditions is pretty severe OCD, and I still have problems, with this. I actually go back and I'll watch this movie or I'll look up the monologue again and I'll listen to it or what have you. And it reminds me, okay, breathe. You don't have control because there is no control, and that's okay. And I do this whole thing when I get the really bad panic attack from it, where I just go and I just revisit that, and it helps me calm down and it helps me remember that I'm not expected to do this thing. No one expects me to do this thing. I just got to remember to breathe.
You also get that feeling at like when you have a newborn. Like they're tiny, you should be able to control some things, but you have all their needs. You have your needs which aren't being met, but you also have your partner. And there are people's like, I did this and this and this with 6 kids and a newborn, and you're like, I did good to make sure they were fed, they were clean, and they're alive.
Yeah.
Learning how to parent is harder than anybody wants to say at times.
And everybody has different parenting experiences also. Some kids are easy.
Yeah.
Some kids are so easy to parent that even though you're a good parent, you've made such a good, influence on them or whatever. They're just that kind of kid that's wired the right way, almost parent themselves, and they turn out to be great. Some kids turn out to not be so great. Some kids,
Some
they survive, and that's the best you can do.
some kids are just the Antichrist, and you
Yeah.
don't know why.
Yeah. Like everybody's got their unique experiences, and I actually hate that. I hate people that are like, well, like what you just said. Well, I was, a parent of this many kids. Well, what was your situation exactly? What were all the things that made those things possible to you? Did you have a village worth of friends and family that were able to watch your kids all the time? That's how it worked out for you.
Mhm.
What were the specifics? And I find that a lot of those kind of people, when you start questioning, asking more of the specifics, you start realizing how many opportunities that were afforded to them through, through means or chance or circumstance or whatever, that made all those things easier that aren't easy for anyone.
It's like Opie Pie. I'm not saying there's anything bad about her.
Right.
There's nothing, but she's autistic. And that gives a whole new set of learning trials that she has to go through. And as a parent, I've had to learn I cannot show my frustration because it's not her fault. I can
Right.
be frustrated. She can be frustrated, but I can't like put it all out. I have to figure out ways. Okay, this thing happened. How can we fix it so she can learn from it so she knows we need to do differently?
Exactly.
And but if there's like 6 steps because you got to put all these things together to make a cake. That has been like the crazy thing about cooking. It's like the cumin in the pumpkin bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
That turned out pretty nummy. But instead of
Yeah.
but that's like, if you think about it, like the cumin and the pumpkin bread, how that happened instead of the cinnamon, like it's a metaphor for life, man. Everybody has a different. We all have the same recipe, basic recipes, but we've all got different
Mhm.
ingredients. We all make the
Oh,
cake
yeah.
in a different way because this is the way we learn how to make it based on our experiences or the influences or what have you around us. Like we're all just trying to make a fucking cake, and sometimes you put cumin in it.
Yeah, you don't have the cinnamon or you read the thing wrong, the ingredient wrong,
Yeah,
and you grab the wrong thing.
yeah. It's
Mhm.
improvisation. We do the best we can with what we got, and that's literally what the fuck life is. Like we do the best we can with what we have. And sometimes we have the ability to find better ways of doing things, or we get to learn something new, or I mean that
Yeah.
changes our ingredients.
Dude, her imagination is epic. I would have not have thought to do some of the things she's brought up.
Yeah. And like you
So,
gotta nurture that, like nurturing that. A lot of people, there's the whole thing, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I hate that saying. I fucking hate it. Because the only people that don't want to learn things new are already dead. So
mhm,
if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm too old to learn anything new, you're dead already. That's it.
mhm,
The second you choose to stop evolving, your life ends. You might be breathing, you might be technically still a human being, but for all intents and purposes, you're dead, man. Like, and that's life. You got to always be moving forward and take in this new information. It's okay if your entire thought process on life changes because some event you had. It's supposed to.
yeah,
It's That's life. It's supposed to happen. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's a struggle to change your ideas, and like especially like the fundamental ones that get shaken and like you realize you've been wrong forever. Like I had this
mhm,
really weird one about kids. A couple weeks ago, and I got really pissed about this. I used to think, well, we were hardcore as kids. We did this, we did that, and kids these days are soft. It's not. It's not that kids are soft. It's that parents actually give a fuck more about kids to stop them from doing these terrible, terrible things to themselves and to their communities. Like it's not that they're soft. They just we live in a smarter world
yeah,
that actually gives a shit now. And that's what the actual difference is. But it's taken me years. And I said that out loud. Like I about punched my screen because it was the school district canceling school too often because the weather was, it was really cold, like dangerous cold, and some of the heaters don't work in some classrooms, and there's issues. And there's all these parents and people screaming about, well, when we were kids, and I was like, yeah, when we were kids, we had parents at
yeah.
work. We had
It's
parents
like,
that were so busy working or not paying attention to us that we all have stories about that time we almost died, or sometimes 50 of these stories, because there were no parents or adults that thought that we would do these kind of things, or weren't too busy to find out what we were doing. We weren't hardcore. We were fucking stupid.
Yeah,
And
I
hitting that
remember,
like realization was just like, holy shit. I have to change my thought process.
I remember John is telling me stories. It's like 30 degrees. It's like 28 degrees, and coming off a river, the water makes the wind colder.
Yeah.
There's ice crystals, and they would not allow them to wear pants to school for nothing. All the little girls had to wear skirts,
Yep.
and
Were
the
they able to
parents.
at least wear leggings underneath?
No, not at that time. This was back like this was back before we were born.
Okay.
When in like the 1950 something, okay?
Yeah.
And she told us stories about how she didn't understand, like, even the parents, they wouldn't let them wear like pants and under their clothes until they get to school because that involved more laundry.
Yep.
And how hard it was to go from the house walking to school some days because of the river
Yep.
and how cold it was. So yeah, I get that idea.
It was
I
also
don't
go ahead.
I don't want that to happen to my kids.
It was also at that time also based on faith and propriety, that a lot of the
Mhm.
schools, their uniforms made the girls wear the skirts, or sometimes they would at least allow like a longer skirt, like, but like an ankle length skirt kind of thing, but that really doesn't help like you think it would when in the situation at all. And the fabrics were like very oddly created, so they really didn't like keep you warm. But it's this still happens actually. There's a lot of schools, except for like schools these days are letting kids be a little bit more artistic, or they're realizing that things are cold, so they allow changes in uniform for specific circumstances like cold and stuff like that. But back then, no, it was just, this is your uniform. You this is what you wear. This is what you have to wear, and we don't care if you die while you're doing it. This is it. Because if we let one kid do it, then we've got to let all the kids do it. And that was the thought.
Yeah.
But it's crazy though. Like, we were we were just stupid. People made stupid decisions because we either didn't know any better or people didn't care. And I think from my generation, around that generation was like, towards the end of being a teen was when I started noticing, it's like late 90s now going into the aughts, and people are starting to care now. So I'm like, where the fuck was that in the end of the 80s and all the 90s? Like, where did that come from? Why didn't no one care then? Like, or any time before then, before me? Because people, and like your generation, James, and generations even farther back, my versions of nightmare stories are pretty bad, but you guys and farther back had even crazier nightmare stories, because we at least had the commercial that would come on every night asking where your children were. Like,
Mhm.
generations before that didn't have that. And the ones that didn't have TV, oh my God, those are basically horror stories, small town horror stories
Yeah.
from my
I
relatives
can
that have told me what their childhoods were like.
now, in case anybody's wondering, don't let the gray fool you. I'm Generation X.
Yeah,
So
I'm the generation right after you,
right.
but only by a
So
couple years, because people can't decide on when it ended.
as far as okay, so the more I am 50, but I'm just now understanding, because a lot of these people are dead,
Yeah.
unfortunately. That there is a pretty big swath of mental illness in my family. However, they came from the generation that never talked about it,
Exactly.
Mhm.
about that or feelings. Fortunately, my mom uh, did her best to break that cycle by, she would take me to, at the age of 9, I would see a therapist, not a full on psychiatrist yet,
Right.
but she knew could possibly benefit from something like that. And then on, I learned that my great grandmother received electroshock treatment because of her depression. My grandma suffered from, like, her entire life from massive depression, but she never let on. She was always perky and up and always outgoing. It wasn't until the last couple of years of her life, when I would visit her in the nursing homes, that she would basically just open up to me, because my uncles didn't want her to talk about it, because, you know, you don't want to bring shame to the family name or something. But I guess she knew that I would understand.
Yeah.
But
And that's the key word right there, shame, because that's what it was. My dad would not let me talk about my mental illness. My mom was like your mom, like a lot. Like she taught me, she took me to a therapy at a young age with a therapist. Like she did her best. She did everything that she could, but then she had my dad like, well, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're letting our son talk about this to someone, and we don't talk about those things or do those things in this family. And he was a big, scary guy. So, and my mom was a very small, meek person. So, there was only so much she could do. But like, it's weird to think that for most of mankind's history, we did not talk, or not allowed to, or not supposed to talk about mental health. And now we have a podcast where we can talk about mental health because it's okay. And if you don't think it's okay, you don't have to listen to it.
It's something I've been trying to, I guess, for lack of a better word, champion, as far as my involvement with the church and everything, because I know, especially with my situation, it's even more of a taboo in that situation, because you're looked upon as not have enough faith, or there's something, obviously you have some secret sin that you're not talking about. Oogie boogie boogie. Read the book of Job sometime, people. But anyway,
I've definitely seen this though. I've seen faiths that are like that, and I've also seen establishments of the same faith that were the complete opposite, that were very open and set and had therapists. Like, and that's the thing about it. Like, it's not a religion-wide thing. It's certain gatherings of religions and sects that feel this way.
Well, my favorite one was in the 90s. I was involved in a church that pretty much thought that any and all of that was because of a demon or several demons.
That is something that I have heard about, actually, a couple different religions.
Yeah. And that's anyway, but yeah, I just I was pretty open about and transparent about my struggles with mental illnesses with the youth group and such, and it was fortunately looked upon as a positive thing, because then the kids would come out and feel like they should talk about their own struggles there without feeling weird. And that's what I'm trying to do, but then you get canceled because that's not what people want to hear.
Right. Because there's still a strong stigma. There's still a strong enough of a stigma, even with some of the younger generation. It's still a stigma with even some of them that it's tough. But but you got to do what you're doing. Like you got to be that voice. You got to be like, hey, I've been through this. I see this in you. If you need someone to talk to, man, like the thing I always tell my daughter and Matt is, you have this awesome opportunity to do better than the generation that came before you.
Yeah.
That is your goal as a child growing up, is to figure out how the generations before you failed and what we failed at, and teach us while you're learning how to be better, teach us how to be better. And I think that should never stop for us. Like, we should always be championing these things, and like, be it in your religious communities, the haunt that I work at, our writing communities, our podcasts, like we should be, championing things like this to create a better environment or world for everyone, that happens to listen to our words, because you don't know who you're going to influence at what time that could make a difference. So you could write a story about mental illness, and then 8 years from now, some kid in like middle school reads it and it clicks with them and it saves their life, because like this moment just happened for them where they realized that someone out there at some point in time understood them entirely, and they turned out okay, and everything
Right.
turned out all right. You know, it's weird to think about like the responsibility of that, but it's true. I mean, there's plenty of things
Right.
I read or saw growing up that hit me in such a weird way, like that Instinct movie. Like there's just so many different things like that that hit me in so many weird ways that made me feel okay being alive or being me. We definitely got to keep on with that, man, for sure.
There's nothing more than I could do. I mean, this is my daily reality that I deal with.
Right.
I can either ignore it or face it head on.
Yeah.
So,
and I think the important thing for people at home to remember is that there's going to be times when you ignore it and times when you deal with it face on, because it's fucking exhausting to deal with it face on all the time.
And I made a vow that not to just, sound like one of those people who always like put out like positive affirmations, or, all those people on my Facebook feed that they're like, if you think this way, then if you say it's a bad day, then it's going to be a bad day. Think positive. I'm like, you don't get it. You can say it all you want, but if your chemical imbalance is some days you just wake up, try to explain that some days you just wake up and you just don't want to exist.
Yeah. You can wake up and tell yourself, hey, I would like to have a good day today. And that's the best you got.
Right. It's just, you can't explain it to them. There's nothing bad that happened, nothing, depressed, anything that would send, I guess normal depression would be a bad way of putting it, but, nothing bad happened to cause you to feel this way. Normally, you just feel that way. You can't explain it. You kind of have to, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but sometimes that's the only way you can really understand what somebody's going through.
Yeah. I'm watching the show Shameless right now with Michelle. Like I didn't see it when it was popular, and I'm not seeing the British version of it, the original version. I'm just watching the American version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of discussion and like obvious addictions, mental illness, and things. And the show is a drama. Like it's a 100% a drama show. It's got comedy and little things in it sometimes, but it's a drama. And there's a scene where one of the characters, depression hits him like for the first time ever in his life, and he does crazy things, and he doesn't want to take the medication because he put him on lithium, and it makes him feel like a zombie, which I've been on that before, so I know what that's like. And he flushes it all, and everybody's freaking out about it. And he talks to this doctor afterwards. It's really nice, like straight talk, like honest, psychiatrist. She's like, this is what we're gonna do. This is what you need to be on. This is what's gonna happen. He's like, well, how long do I have to take this? How long do I have to take these meds for? Not understanding that it's a life thing. And she's like, well, there have been a lot of updates, in modern times. Some people have actually found eventually they may not need to be on it. Depending on your chemical imbalance and your unique situation only. Never stop unless the doctor tells you to, by the way. And he's like, well, how long will that be? He starts to get excited. And she's like, well, like 30 to 40 years, there's been some, and his face just falls. And he's like, so I have this is a lifelong thing I've got to deal with. And I have to be on meds for 30 or 40 years now. She's like, yeah. And this character is going through this arc right now where he feels because of this, his whole life is over. It means nothing and it's ruined. And what's powerful about it is a lot of people, when they get that diagnosis, even at whatever time they get their diagnosis, they say, oh, I'm a slave to this now. And this is just me. And my life is over and it'll never be different. And it's crushing. And seeing like how I felt be reflected in this character that I'm watching in the show that I really like, it brings back that trauma for me from when, like I've been thinking about that a lot since I just saw this episode yesterday, and I've not been able to stop thinking about it since, like every second since I watched it. And that almost spun me off into another depression, but I'm like, I needed to see that because I'm going through a time where I am getting more depressed lately. And so seeing that was a reminder, man, I got diagnosed, with things X amount of many years ago. And I've literally figured out for the most part of my life and how to have a life. I've done a lot of shit, and I have figured out how to have a life that I didn't think I would have when I got that news. So like I think I needed to see that to remind myself to get that kick in the ass. Like, no, you got that advice too. You were told these same things, but you still did it despite yourself. So it's a good reminder to have once in a while, because you're not going to have it all the time, and you're still going to go through phases where you forget that lesson. It's normal.
It didn't stop my grandmother from getting a nursing degree. She's like, nope, I'm going to go do this. And she went and she did it.
Huh? Yep.
Well,
So it's your choice to give up or to keep going.
right.
And I'm grateful every day when you guys decide, okay, I got this. I'm going to move and do things, compared to the alternative.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. It's a lot to think about for sure.
And then once in a while, you just run into that person who's like, well, if you change your diet and go outside in the sun for a while, you won't have depression. Followed normally by, ow, why'd you hit me?
Yeah, it pretty much. Yeah, the sun might make me feel good. There's science behind that. It might make, like, but it's not taking away my problem, buddy. I can be outside all day, but at some point in time, I'm going to be sick of being outside and being around people, and I'm going to have to go run for the hills, and then what? Then where's your whole life-changing, fix? It doesn't exist.
I smile kindly, I am polite, and I walk away.
Yeah, sometimes I plan. I know what to expect after needing to be sociable for a bit more than is normal for me. But even this past weekend, with the 24-hour stream, interacting with you guys, and then going to a 9-year-old birthday party where my friend's parents just kept wanting to talk to me and socialize, and I'm like, you don't understand, you're draining me here. And then the next day going to church, which is always
yeah, it's a social thing,
Now I have them all trained to not talk to me, but still being in the group, I can feel the drain, especially from the Pentecostal types that go there, who are just vampires, and it just triggered such a swing that I just.
Oh yeah, that's why I didn't join too on Monday. Like I thought it would take me to like Tuesday or Wednesday to physically recover from sitting in this chair for that long, but I actually ended up sleeping for like 10, 11 hours after that stream, and physically I was hurting, but I was starting to feel a little bit better. But I realized, like, mentally, I was just so done, like just done. Even today, I'm still a little. I'm getting to the point where I'm almost okay, because I have to be ready for Saturday for the haunt thing. But I was like, you know what? Today, let me hop on in here and do this padded cell with them, because like maybe this is what I need to. Maybe talking it out will get me, there the rest of the way to recharge my battery.
Right. Is it helping?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, I was almost there, but yeah.
I'm enjoying you both. You both are wonderful.
That's why I love padded cell, man, because whether we talk about serious things like we are like right at this moment, we spent 45 minutes about video games earlier. You know what I mean? Like, we get a chance to talk about so many different things, and like, I don't know, just talk to each other. And again, whether we have, we've had a couple live listeners today, and more that we can't see actually. And then people that listen to them later, they're, like I said earlier, someone's going to be like, oh, well, I remember this situation, or I experienced that. And that's what this show is. And that's why it's part of a storytelling network, because we're telling you our life story. It's literally, that's how this one fits in.
So, kind of a tie-in topic, I guess. Is there like an obscure board game or video game franchise that you would love to see made into a movie? Because I know they made a movie about the board game Battleship.
They're making a Monopoly one as well. There's Monopoly one. There's a couple they were talking about actually making. More board games have come from movies than translating over to movies, I've noticed.
I think the best one of that, the board games, would be Clue.
Yeah, I mean, that was my favorite one that
movie.
is in existence.
Right.
Yeah, that one lends itself really well for that. There was a game like Clue that was called 13 Dead End Drive that actually had parts from the board. I wouldn't mind seeing a version of that made into a movie, because that's like Disney's Haunted Mansion meets Clue. It's somewhere kind of like in the middle, like the vibe of it. I would imagine would be a fun one. A lot of the board games that I like are really obscure or weird, or not a lot of people play them, or because they have a lot of pieces and a lot of rules, and I like those kind of games. But I have to look up the name of it. It's about a house on a hill. You could argue that it's basically house house on a hill, but it's
Now,
not.
as far as really old video games, there's Dig Dug. I think if we get the right writer, we can figure that out. Or Pac-Man.
Oh yeah.
I saw this. It was I think Funny or Die or something did mock movie trailer based on Pac-Man. It's just some guy who's like on acid or LSD, going through a government, making him think everything's ghosts, and he's powering up by pellets.
Nice. I like that. I found the game title because I actually own it over here. And Michelle held up the board game for me. I can never get anybody to play it with me. It's Betrayal at the House on the Betrayal at I can't even talk. Betrayal at House on the Hill. The whole premise of the game is you are a group of paranormal investigators from different backgrounds who go in to investigate this spooky house. Now, in the gameplay, every time it's your turn, you pick a tile out that's a room of the house and you put it down. So you create the house as you go in every different game. It's unique every time you play it. And there's different floors. If you get a staircase, you can go up. And you go around and you're discovering all these spooky things, and these paranormal event happens. And eventually, so many of these paranormal events just keep happening and happening that you roll dice to see if the haunting is officially starting. Now, once the official haunting started, you go to this little booklet, and the booklet asks you, okay, what artifact did you find that is the core of this haunting, and what room are you in? And based on that, it tells you what the haunting is. Now, you have to decide who. Now, suddenly, there's a bad guy in the game. Whoever started the haunting is the bad guy that the rest of the players are now against for some reason or another. But it's unique how it all happens and what the hauntings are. And it's item based, which always made me think of Cabin in the Woods. How they had all the different items down in that basement. That if you chose a different one, it can make things go differently. It's a game like that. And I think it could lend itself as a series of movies, or a TV series, like a streaming platform or something, where like these different groups of people at different times keep going in the house to discover, like paranormal investigators or whatever. And this season is about this one object, and the next season is about this object. So like House on Haunted Hill meets Friday the 13th, the series. Kind of a vibe. I think it could really lend itself as an interesting project. Or Warehouse 13 if you prefer that context.
It'd be a fun game to play.
It's a really fun game. I love it, man. I love it. It's just there's a lot of little pieces, a lot of rules, and people generally don't like to sit down for like 20 hours and play a game like I do.
Oh, I'd love to play it with you so much.
I'm a nut about board games, man.
Okay, there is a. Whenever my cousins get together, we try to do this once a year, usually during Thanksgiving, but we haven't been able to the past few years because of obvious reasons. There's a board game somebody always brings along called Secret Hitler.
Oh, that's a good one. I love
a great
this one.
game. The problem is, whenever we play it, all my cousins just assume I'm the Hitler, or at least part of the fascist regime. Even though I would show them, look, I'm part of the Liberal Party. Look, right here. They still don't
my
believe
card.
me. Right.
There's
They
a
still
lot of
don't
versions
believe
of that game too. Like there's Werewolf, there's Mafia, there's a video game version of it called Werewolf Within, and my favorite one for PC called Town of Salem. That's my favorite one. I played it on Steam randomly a lot. Well, I used to. I own it still. Like those are fun games, man. I love games like that. Because like you have to like be misleading too. You have to be misleading in these games, and pretty much you're acting while you're playing it to get people to believe you're this or that to screw them over.
Yeah. See, okay. As a kid, I was so into the Pac-Man video game. Like every time we would go to Pizza Hut, I would always go and sit at the Pac-Man. But I was so big on it, I would watch the cartoon back in the early 80s.
The Christmas special.
I would eat the Ralston-based cereal that they came
Yep.
out with.
Yep.
And I also had the board game of Pac-Man. Now,
I did too.
oh yeah,
With the marbles and
the
Pac-Man that
marbles
used
and the
to-
kunk 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 kunk.
It was so weird, but yeah.
The ghosts. Yeah, it was
My grandma used to play with me nonstop.
great.
It was on the shelf right next to the Roger Rabbit board game, and was it the Mad Magazine board game that my grandma had? Like she,
Oh, wow.
man, it was my grandma and my mom that really got us into gaming, and it got to the point where we owned like 50 or 60 different board games in our house growing up because we'd get them secondhand or people would just buy them for the family. And we every Sunday, me and my brother and sister would go, and this was a giant like linen closet. We had transformed into our board game closet, and every game had a little number on the box. Like we numbered every box, and we would throw all the numbers in a hat. So every Sunday we'd start the morning getting up, going to the board game closet, pulling out a number from our little hat, and that's what we would play. And when we beat it,
That is
or when we
cool.
would finish, we'd play a different one. And like we had an insane amounts of them, and this was just something that we did. And my grandma got us into it. My mom like would play things with us sometimes, but like Granny just really got us into it all. So like, and I don't have anyone in my life that I can just sit down and or at least enough people that I can sit down and just work on a board game. Like I can get the kids to play like card games and Michelle and like we like murder mystery games and things like that sometimes, but like the hardcore like board gaming and stuff. Even if it's a game of Sorry that lasts for 8 hours, like I'm in. I'm so in. We got somebody's what shop Nambar.
See,
I'm not going to throw it up there because I don't want someone to accidentally think it's something of ours and put money to this person because I'm assuming they mean WhatsApp or something like that. But yeah, that comment's hilarious. I'm working on getting that removed right now. By the way.
Okay. You're doing it? Okay, I'll leave it alone.
Yep. Deleting comment, blocking user. I just wanted to point. I like to point out when we have morons in the chat that say stupid, like the one that offered me a job during this stream, the scam job. That was hilarious. I just think it's important to point out, idiocy sometimes.
I think the weirder one was the one that was asking about tuna.
What the fuck? I have no idea what that was even about.
Okay, what?
They were asking about how to make a meal with tuna.
Yeah,
like should they do this, or this? I'm like, what?
And it was the weirdest thing. It just popped up in chat like they were having a conversation with someone else, and they got confused on where they were typing things into. And it happened around the same time as the guy that wanted I said something. They're like, "Oh, well, you need a job," or it's on the stream. Like that one I actually brought up and showed because it was so funny. It was on the 24-hour stream. It got weird. But yeah, board games. There is this really cool thing called Tabletop Simulator on Steam, where if you and your friends all own it, you can download different board games and actually play them virtually. It's really neat, and they've actually got Betrayal of the House of the Hill on there. They've got a bunch of stuff, like from simple games like Monopoly and things like that to more complex games. But it's really cool.
Fond memories of being a wee lad, going out to the family farm. And all the cousins and I would go into the basement where they had an old box of the Mousetrap game.
Oh, I love Mousetrap.
Spend the morning or afternoon just assembling all the pieces and not really playing the game, just trying to make the thing go.
Yep. We would fill the bathtub with water too because it was funny. So we ruined a lot of boards that way. Water.
Nice.
But the boards were the easiest parts to get because you could just go to the thrift store and like find a version of Mousetrap that's missing half the pieces, but the board is there, and that's all we really needed because we damaged another board.
Oh yeah. I mean, we would. There's like Hi Ho Cheerio, and my all-time favorite, Hungry Hungry Hippos, which I would always dominate.
That game, you just had to have bigger hands than everybody else, and you could work that hippo and destroy everybody, man.
Mm-hmm.
Take people's fingers. We had some finger injuries in that game because if I would be going too fast and beating everybody, my sister and my brother would be like, "No, stop!" They put their hand on the board, and I would just hit that hippo, so it would just come down on their hand. That's what you get.
We had the Operation the old school stuff
Oh yeah.
where it actually had the bones and various. We're talking like early '80s version where
Yep. That's the version we had.
they almost electrocuted you, kind of thing.
Yep. And it hurt a little bit too. Like it make you go numb just for long enough to realize, oh, I
Mom, you know.
I didn't realize the 9-volt battery could do that. You learned really quick.
Oh yeah.
And there was this series of game. There was this one company made the cutest little game. One was called Don't Break the Ice, and you had this little mallet that you had to knock the cubes out. And it was the same company did Don't Spill the Beans. There was like a couple games that were all kind of related that this one company just kept putting out for kids. And they were like
Ants in the Pants.
Yeah, yep, Ants in the Pants. Yep. There's one about cooties. I can't remember what that one was
Cootie.
now, but like
It's called Cooties.
it's just called Okay, yeah. But I remember weird board games from my childhood too, like the Ghostbusters board game. It had a lot of parts to it. It reminds me of what Dead End Drive ended up being. So cool. Like you had to there was all kinds of shit in that game.
There was one board game that I got when I was 7 because it was advertised and I was intrigued by it. It's the whole premise is you go up this mountain,
Fireball
like
Island,
jungle path, and there's a giant spider in the middle where you have to remove certain bugs and trinkets with a metal thing, and if you make a contact, it'll send that thing jumping at you.
I've not heard of this one. I thought you were describing Fireball Island at first because it was like that, but it had like the marbles, like the giant fireballs that would roll down. But I don't think I've heard of that one, man.
You were supposed to rescue the bugs and the people that were stuck in the giant spider's web, and you had this like metal fork thing to scoop them out, but you couldn't touch the web, otherwise it'll trigger the whatever electronic device shoot. And the spider thing was just like this foam cut out with the Black Widow sticker on the thorax.
Yeah.
So it could fly and stick to you. But yeah, it was spine tingling.
Do you remember the name of this game?
No, none whatsoever.
We'll have to figure that out. That sounds really cool, man. I love games like that.
It was.
If anybody is listening and knows, put in the comments. I will find it and then I will share it in our group so everybody can find it. Please let me know.
Yes, please. Because I have Polaroid pictures of us playing the game during the party, and like this, I triggered it, and the spider was like just leaked out and stuck itself right here, and I'm like, ah!
I don't want to play it whatsoever.
I'm seeing a couple of different versions. One says it's called Forbidden Jungle, or Forbidden Bridge, but there's like a more modern version of it that I'm only finding the modern versions, but those don't sound right either. No, it's not Forbidden Bridge. You're actually building a bridge in this one, but it's I guess it's part of a game series they made different versions of over the years, but I can't find the original.
Curious. I'm going to have to do some spelunking myself, maybe. Check it out.
May you never wake up with a spider in your nose.
Yeah, I remember when somebody told me that usually you swallow spiders at night because your mouth is warm, and I'm like, thank you for telling me this. Well, I was trying to give you some perspective, and I'm like, yes, you did give me perspective. Gave me the perspective of never falling asleep again.
Right.
You dick.
I was not trying to be one, but that is how I woke up like last month. One day last month, that is how I woke up. I got fit.
Yeah, I'll look this up more later. I love board game stuff and like stories and books about board, like Jumanji. I fucking love Jumanji, dude. Like I was fascinated with that book as a kid, and like Zathura and all the movies that have come out. I love that kind of stuff, man. Like the modern Jumanji movies are okay, but like the original Robin Williams one where you really felt like the game was being played before your eyes, that one. And I've read there's an I wanted to say LJ something. Hold on a minute.
I didn't know there was a book.
Of Jumanji?
Yeah.
It's a kid's book. Yeah, it was that when I was
Yeah.
really young. Oh my God, her name LJ Smith. The author LJ Smith, who's known for doing like Vampire Diaries and some stuff that's more popular, like TV show wise now. When I was young, did a series of books about a board game that blew my mind. One of the books, The Forbidden Game is what the series is called. It's a trilogy, I want to say. It's literally about a haunted fucking like horror version of a board game. It's like Fear Street, the Fear Street novels meets a board game. It really like affected me a lot growing up, to the point where as a young adult, was assembling a crew and writing a script for a movie, like a modern like horror movie based on a board game that I've still always wanted to do. That it's still on my secret slate of books to write eventually, but like just the whole concept of a board game coming alive and the things that could happen as a result of that just have always been really interesting to me. And we've seen video game versions of that. There's a really good horror movie called Stay Alive. A lot of people don't like it, but I like it. Where basically a video game comes to life. But there's a history of horror in video games. It's easier with video games, I think, than board games. Stay Alive is good because it's like the Legend of Bloody Mary type of thing, and like she murders people, and if you die in the game, you die in real life. Kind of like Freddy, if you die in your dreams, you die in real life.
Oh yeah. Dude. Okay, I found it. Now I've got to get it.
Found what?
Found it?
The Forbidden Game.
Oh, the books?
Okay.
Yeah. Have
Oh,
not
yeah,
found the other game yet.
Oh yeah, those books are really good, man. Like they're 80s, but they're really good. My mom, we had this thing growing up where mom would read a book and she would think we would like it, so she passed it on to us. And then as we were reading it, we'd have conversations. It was like our little book clubs, basically. We just had our little book clubs. And I remember she was telling us about those when she was reading them, and when she was done, she passed them to me and my sister, and we just kept going to the library and checking them out over and over, and like our whole family, like over and over until we were done reading them all.
That rocks.
Because it was a little obscure even then. So like the library only had one copy of each book in the series. And that was back before a lot of the libraries were interconnected, where you could rent one and pick it up from a different branch, or the branch would send it over. Like, so it's harder to get books.
Oh yeah.
Man.
So, all right. Guys,
We've been doing this
I'm going to
for
have
like
to
a
call
long
it
time.
a night.
Yeah, I was thinking we should probably end this show because I realized we've been doing this for 2 hours and 42 minutes. So it'd probably be a good time for us to sign off.
Almost 3 hours. It was a good night, though.
Really good
considering
night.
it was
This was a
just
good one,
us
man.
three.
Yeah. I thought it
I
was a
mean-
wonderful time. I really enjoyed you guys tonight. It's
Yeah.
a lot of fun. It's what I needed, like this was a show that I definitely needed to have right now.
Yeah. So,
Well, with that in mind, guys, listen, you know where to find us. This is Padded Cell. We really don't promote ourselves on Padded Cell. We're all fucking crazy, but it's good.
I was waiting for you to get done, and then I was going to say goodbye.
Oh yeah, we're done.
Goodbye.
Get the fuck out.
Bye.